Hello, good morning. It's Saturday, the 26th of May, 2012. Welcome to Newsfile on Joy 99.7 FM in Accra and on our affiliate stations across the country. We're also live on the internet at myjoyonline.com. This week, there are a number of themes that we want to deal with on your favorite Newsfile. First comes from the courts, and this week, Jake Utanka Obechebelamte was the subject of a court case. It was a case filed by the Deputy Information Minister, Sam Okudzeto-Ablakwa, and the other Deputy Minister, Dr. Omane Boama. Well, they sought to argue before the Supreme Court that Jake's acquisition of a bungalow and a piece of property on which it resided was illegal. The courts, after a number of adjournments, ruled that his acquisition was not illegal. Consequently, government, through cabinet, has issued a quick statement saying it will no longer sell that piece of property. It's raised a huge debate. Has the property already been sold? Is the president putting himself unnecessarily in the line for impeachment? We'll get various perspectives on this subject this morning on Newsfile. Also in the courts, the former Attorney General, Martin Ebike Amidu, has been speaking, and he is arguing that he suspects a deliberate delay in the Woyome prosecution. He's even indicting government's legal team and calling some of their acts unethical and amounting to meddling as well as conflict of interest. Kennedy Apon's case is still in the courts. Now, state prosecutors want the case moved from the Supreme Court. There are a few other questions about why they're still asking for adjournments to prepare a docket before they get the trial underway. We'll start off with the courts this morning, and then we will talk about Parliament. In Parliament, the minority has been criticizing the President, his Finance Minister, and the former Attorney General, Betty Mildred-Risu. They are arguing that they should all not be absolved from prosecution in the CP debt payment matter. We'll hear the various perspectives on that as well. And then we'll get back onto the road to election 2012. There have been a couple of opinions or opinion polls in the marketplace. Sinovate says Nana Akufo-Addo is leading President Mills in a recent poll they conducted in April this year. UK Economist is also putting the president ahead in their poll as well. We're examining that. And Dr. Muhammadu Bawumia has also come in for some criticism. He's been accused of indulging in ethnic and religious politics. When my guests join me, I'll introduce them to you. We'll start off with analysis on all of these subjects. But we are always excited when you send us your thoughts by text, 1422 across networks or 1760 across networks. So when you send us an email, newsfile@myjoyonline.com. This is Newsfile on Joy 99.7 FM in Accra and on our affiliates across the country. It's also live online at www.myjoyonline.com. We are excited when you send us your thoughts by text 1422 across networks, or when you put your thoughts on our Facebook wall, facebook.com/joy997. Let me introduce my guests to you, and then I'll do a quick disclosure to you about something that we had to check up on from our show last week before we get into our conversations this morning. This morning, to my immediate left is Nana Kumia. He's the communications director of the New Patriotic Party. Nana, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Morning, Kojo.
Edbert Fable is a lawyer and a publisher of the Observer newspaper. Egbert, good morning, and thank you for joining us. And I'm always tempted to call him Chief for some reasons. Shortly, we'll be joined by...
He was the Chief Vandal?
Well, like I said, for some reasons. Shortly, we'll be joined by Mr. George Nate. He is a member of the government's communication team. And the Honorable Idwasare, who is the Member of Parliament for Adenta. He will also be joining us shortly for our conversation. Let me quickly touch on something that we have to follow up for you from our show last week. You recall one of my guests, Mr. Mutala Mohammed, suggested that Dr. Muhammadu Bawumia had not written his own speech in the State of the Economy address that he gave a few months ago. I challenged him to some proof. He mentioned that he would share with us a recording that substantiates that argument that he made. A week on, we are yet to receive that recording. In fairness to him, however, he explains that he's been trying to reach us to get us to listen to that recording. And so we're expecting that at least between now and the next time we gather here, we'll have the opportunity to listen to that tape and give you, our viewers and our listeners, some feedback on that subject. This morning, as I mentioned, there are three themes we want to deal with. One, the courts, a number of cases in the courts, the Jake Obechebelamte case, the Woyome case, and the Kennedy Apon case. We will also talk about the CP debt payment saga. And now the minority is asking for the president, for the former Attorney General, Betty Mildred-Risu is asking for the finance minister to be looked at closely again. And then we'll talk about the road to election 2012. There are a number of polls that are out there in the marketplace today. And then Dr. Bawumia has been accused of ethnic and religious politics. Let me start off with what happened in our courts this week. And the Supreme Court ruled on the Jake Obechebi-Lamte bungalow acquisition matter. The panel of 9 justices of the nation's highest court argued that his acquisition was not illegal. Subsequently, Cabinet has issued a statement following a Cabinet meeting on Thursday and a decision taken there that government no longer intends to sell that building. This raised a lot of questions about morality, questions about legality. Which one should reign supreme, the moral questions or the legal questions? And perhaps even in answering both sets of questions, what answers do you have in mind? Share with us your thoughts. Let me start with Egbert. You are a lawyer. I'm sure you follow that case pretty closely. What do you make of it?
I think that it is a welcome decision. This is not the first time that a citizen of the Republic has actually had to go to court with regards to land legitimately bought from the Lands Commission, which is a statutory body outlined and provided for in the 1992 Constitution to deal with government lands. You see, Kojo, in your introductory comments, you make a very, profound pronouncement, which, should shed a lot of light on this whole land matter. The government says in this statement that it is no longer interested in selling that particular bungalow, meaning that once upon a time, the government was interested in selling the bungalow and so took a legitimate decision to sell it. The issue is that that was the Kufuor government, which was a legitimate government of the Republic of Ghana. So that if a government is a government, concept of government is a continuum, then the only problem is that, well, the government of Ghana, now under President Mills, decides that it is no longer interested. So then those who are asking the moral questions should first of all know that you proceed from a certain foundation. Jake Obechebi-Lamte did not go and usurp the property. He did not go to use force. He did not steal it. He actually, if you like, bought it off the government of Ghana. Bakojo, the other issue again is this. Can you use administrative means to overturn or override a contractual or legal relationship that exists between people? And I'll read to you, Kojo, I'll be very fair. The 1992 Constitution provides in Article 257 that all public lands in Ghana shall be vested in the president on behalf of and in trust for the people of Ghana. It goes on and on and on. Then Article 258 of the same Constitution, and I read, says that there shall be established a lands commission which shall in coordination with the relevant public agencies and governmental bodies perform the following functions. It goes on and on behalf of the government of Ghana, manage public lands and any lands vested in the president by this constitution or by any other law or any lands vested in the commission. Interestingly, Article 265 of the same 1992 Constitution provides, so, except as otherwise provided in this constitution or in any other law which is not inconsistent with this constitution, the Lands Commission shall not be subject to the direction or control of any person or authority in the performance of its function. This provision, Article 265 of the Constitution, has not been left alone to stand only in the Constitution, albeit it is the supreme law of the land. I hold in my hands also the Lands Commission Act 2008, Act 767. Section 6 also says, under the heading, independence of the Commission. Except as otherwise provided in the Constitution or in any other law, the Commission shall not be subject to the direction or control of any person or authority in the performance of its functions. I've taken the trouble to run us through a certain backdrop to all of these things. Now, even though it is the government of Ghana in its wisdom, the framers of our constitution in their wisdom, have established a lands commission because the president is not a land economist, neither is he a surveyor or a civil engineer at any point in time. We cannot have that latitude. So we have put professionals in charge of the Lands Commission. The president has ceded his powers to the Lands Commission. So when you go and buy land from the Lands Commission, the presentment, the first paragraph says this lease is executed on so and so and so between the president of Ghana acting through the Lands Commission and maybe Kojo Opo Nkrumah, blah, 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 blah. So when that has been done, it's a lease. It creates contractual relationships. The lease now provides that the lease can be terminated for so and so and so and so and so. Jake holds one of such leases. And so and so and so and so reasons, if there are breaches on the part of Jake, can result in the termination of the lease. So how can the government of Ghana, purporting to act by its cabinet, sit at the Osu Castle and pretend that what the government of Ghana did in 2008, which government is a continuum, don't mind who is president, then you say that without allowing the Lands Commission, which issued the lease, to fault Jake on a certain ground for breaches of covenants in the lease, so it is terminating it. Then you come and say that, well, notwithstanding the lease, the contract between the Lands Commission or the government of Ghana and Jake, we as cabinet, we are not selling again. What you are not? That thing has already been sold. How can you say you are no longer selling? Jake, as we speak, is the owner of the property. Neil Ante van der Poel, who lives in that property, I'm made to believe, if it is right, is only in possession. And what that raises, it's just like buying a taxi. The taxi is your name, you've given it to a driver to drive, albeit on your permission. The driver is driving. If anything happens, you are the one that the police will come to. For example, if it is used, the taxi is used to smuggle cannabis or blah, 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 blah. It is you that they will come to. They will arrest the driver, all right. But you, the owner as well, will also have questions to answer as regards whether or not you are there. And then what this creates is that all this while in the last few months or in the last few years, 2009 to the present day, where that bungalow has been allocated to, what's his name, Mr. Neil Ante van der Poel, Jake has lost use of it. What is going to happen is that any future action by Jake, that I bought property, I have a legal document, blah, 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 blah. And somebody has lived in it at the instance of the government of Ghana. So I suffered loss of use of my property. The government should calculate, the court should calculate the rent from that period to the present day and let the government of Ghana pay me. That is another potential judgment that staring us right in the face, just because people will not take their time and go through the strictures of law to ensure that this country is not shortchanged at any point in time. Now, another absurdity, and I still hold the Lands Commission Act. Let nobody confuse himself. By the Lands Commission Act 2008, Act 767, Section 1 provides that there is established by this act the Lands Commission in accordance with Article 258 of the Constitution. Section 1, subsection 2 says, the commission is a body corporate with perpetual succession, a common seal, and may sue and be sued in its corporate name. So the question is, our friends, Dr. Mani Boama, and also Okudzeto Ablakwa, if you look at the title of the writ, they didn't sue the Lands Commission. They did not, even though the Lands Commission in its law, it's been provided that it is a body corporate to a common seal and may sue and be sued in its corporate name. They rather sued Jacobich Ebilamte as first defendant and Attorney General as second defendant. And there's one area that nobody has adverted their minds
My
to.
understanding is that they sued the Attorney General. And,
yes, but
and later Jake himself attached himself.
Yes, but even that is wrong, because the Attorney General the office of the Attorney General is provided for in the Constitution. But the law that establishes the Lands Commission says that it is a body corporate with perpetual succession, a common seal, and may sue and be sued in its corporate name. Is it the government that gave the land to Jake, or is it the Lands Commission that executed the lease between itself and Jake? So that when you go to court, even the Supreme Court ruling, I was in court sometime last year when Jake's lawyers raised a fundamental issue that there is no constitution, because the action was called as a constitutional action. Jake's lawyers were of the contention that they raised a preliminary legal objection that this whole thing is about land and not about any breaches of the 1992 Constitution. The Supreme Court in its wisdom felt otherwise, and so dismissed the preliminary objection and asked that the trial should go on. The question again for me, Kojo, is that in all of this, the Lands Commission is sitting coolly. It is the one that gave the lease, and it is the one that is to account legally for whether or not the lease is right or wrong. It has not been sued in this matter. So as far as the Lands Commission is concerned, the lease is regular. Now, number two, there's a certain absurdity that has come up, which possibly we all have not adverted our minds to. Admittedly, at the time that our two friends in government instituted the action against the Attorney General, for which Jake later joined, they were, I think, members of the then opposition NDC. Transit to 2009, they all became deputy ministers. Now, the Attorney General is the government's lawyer, is the state's lawyer. For the first time in my short life, right, I am seeing two members of government sue the very government that they are serving. Is this not absurd? That Mr. Okudzeto Ablakwa and Dr. Mani Boama, as deputy ministers of the government of the Republic of Ghana between 2009 to the present day, have actually been in court suing the same government.
But if the history can be understood, then
Of
perhaps
course, I understand.
I
I'm
mean,
giving the
perhaps,
history.
yes, perhaps,
but
perhaps it may not be described as absurd.
Yes, it is absurd. Kojo, it is absurd. It is a matter that requires a little bit of judicial interpretation. If you're a president and you get 2 of your ministers go to court against your government, unless you believe in them so much so, like I do in Jesus Christ, I will fire you.
But these are individuals acting in their individual capacities. They are not
But
necessarily
individuals,
suing in their
good, fantastic point. But
official
you get to
capacities.
realize that in spite of the fact that they are individuals, or when they initiated this, they were individuals, today the whole cabinet of the Republic of Ghana has actually gone into caucus and said that they stand by these individuals and they are prepared to overreach, if you like, erudite directions of the Supreme Court of the Republic to say virtually in implied terms that to hell with the Supreme Court's ruling. This, I am surprised that a whole government will nail its mast to the private actions of 2 individuals, such that its competence and credibility in the area of rule of law can be called into question either in the course of the life of the government or in the life thereafter of the government.
Let me ask you a few other questions about the legal arguments, and then we'll talk the morality and then the politics as well. I have heard, for instance, Mr. Aikwe, a former Attorney General himself, argue that the president's actions flout his oath of office and that he could be unnecessarily putting himself in the line for impeachment. You share that view?
Well, I must say that I know of the existence of the case in court. I also have not seen the judgment in full. My little knowledge of the case is not about compulsions on whether or not, if you like, the bungalow should be given to Jake or not. So that I am a bit constrained speaking to those issues. I do not really want to make a foray into that area when I'm not seized with the full facts as to the black and white of the judgment. But it gives cause for worry, generally speaking, that a government of the Republic will, a day or days after or hours after a Supreme Court, judgment on such a matter, will want to put the whole matter in abeyance by saying that, well, the bungalow is not for sale anymore. It means that the bungalow was for sale previously. And Kojo, you see, I think that we ought to be careful. I have brought into this studio a judgment of the High Court. The title of the case is Honorable Shelayoko Butwe versus Brigadier General Retired Joseph Nunu Mensah as the first respondent. The second respondent was Lieutenant Colonel Retired Larry Beblolate, and then the Attorney General was the third respondent. The sum total, it was also about a government plot that the Honorable Member of Parliament bought. And then National Security Operatives went onto the property and then, tried to stop Honorable Shelayoko Butwe from building. Now, she instructed and action was brought against these 2 persons, Nunu Mensah and Beblolate, as well as the Attorney General. This was a judgment of the High Court, Human Rights Division, delivered on the 2nd day of March 2011 before His Lordship Justice Utapor Derry, High Court Judge. Some parts of it, could you, very, 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 very instructive. And with your permission, I'll read. It says that it is thus obvious the respondents are questioning the propriety of the grant of the lease in issue because it was granted by the former president, Mr. J. Kufuor, to the applicant, who was a minister of state in his government. The present government is not happy with the grant, and this unhappiness is partly expressed in the respondents' affidavit in opposition when they stated that it goes on and on the reasons. Now, the judge proceeds to say that the respondents or the current president and his government may have cause to be unhappy about the grant of the lease by the former president to the applicant. However, that unhappiness had nothing to do with the validity of the grant. The respondents have failed to show in fact and in law that the grant was made in contravention of the due process of law. The respondents again contend that the applicant, that is Honorable Shelayoko Butwe, had breached the covenants in the lease which entitles the president to re-enter for she failed to show that within 3 years of execution she had built a house. It goes on and on. Then the judge proceeds to that it is the respondents who are alleging that the applicant has not built a house to the value of the amount in the lease, so they have to prove same. It is not for the applicant to show that she has complied with the covenants in the lease. The same applies to the surrounding world. Now, in any case, and more importantly, if a party is in breach of a covenant in a lease, the procedure for re-entry does not include sending people to stop construction works and carrying away tools. Re-entry must be exercised in accordance with the law. The relevant provision, he goes on and on and on and on. Now, it is very clear that these matters, even at the level of the High Court, have been handled and dealt with. And if someone like Brigadier Nunu Mensah sits in cabinet. This case involved him. Why have they not brought this to the attention of cabinet? The Attorney General sits in cabinet, and Kojo, you can see the Attorney General is there. It's there. So why have we walked this path? Why have we walked this path to create all the unnecessary, if you like, tension and all this needless strife in our political legal space?
I'll be coming to the issues of law that you deal with when I get the opportunity to speak to some other persons from the other side. But let me quickly touch on the issues of morality before I come to Nana Akomia. There are those who have said that, listen, for a minister of state serving in an administration under a president who holds all public lands in trust on behalf of the government and the people of Ghana, to be allocated this land under these circumstances, it smacks of cronyism, abuse of power, conflict of interest. You can even extend the argument to say, listen, we need these pieces of state property as acquired according to our history, so that the government, the state, will have access to them in the near future to do many other things. And if we continue with this practice where public officials, government ministers, find legally valid means of simply acquiring these, we're just depriving the nation of its assets. What do you make of that argument?
I think that the question of morality has time and again been thrown into, if you like, matters of such public importance. And I am also of a certain, I'm a moralist. But fundamentally, as a student of philosophy, I've always said that in all of our common humanity, every civilization abhors murder, for example. So once at the moral level, and it's at the moral level, you see somebody murder somebody and you are so upset, you feel that something. But society did not leave it at that point. Because if you leave murder as a moral issue, people will kill and walk away free. So every civilization has advanced the moral argument or moral situation where murder is abhorred and codified it into their laws. So that when you murder, you are also brought before justice and obviously sentenced, convicted, and what have you. Now, in this area, Kojo, yes, we also need to point out that I think that we have to repeat it ad nauseam, that Jake, as far as the Supreme Court's ruling makes it clear, when he bought the bungalow, was not in government.
But it's not lost on anybody, his relationship with the government of the day.
But this is a nation, and I'm going to spread the net wide so that we all do the moral arguments dispassionately. Diversity Implementation Committee, right? You know the number of, what do you call it, that the DWM bought?
DWM as in 31st December.
When the NDC was in government?
Tell me.
Kojo, they are littered all over the country. Kanda GNTC, you can name them. Carry them. It's our own country. And I'm not by any stretch of imagination because it was done in the past, it is right to be done now. But it raises fundamental constitutional questions about, if you go to Article 18, I believe, of the 1992 Constitution, it raises certain fundamental questions. It raises certain, I'll find the next about discrimination. About discrimination. That nobody shall be discriminated against. So, Article 17, it says, all persons shall be equal before the law. Article 17.2, a person shall not be discriminated against on grounds of gender, race, color, ethnic origin, religion, creed, or social or economic status. And then Article 17.3 says, for the purpose of this article, discriminate means to give different treatment to different persons attributable only or mainly to their respective description by race, place of origin, political opinions, color, gender, occupation, religion,
so
or
connected
creed,
to this
blah,
case
blah. So I'm connected.
Connected.
Yes. If because it's been done in the past, if the government cracks or that's what it's doing, which I think is patently wrong and illegal, Ejekobe Chebilamte will just go to the Supreme Court, give a litany of previous grants under the NDC government to some of his functionaries and their wives, and say that why, when they did it that time, if somebody else has also done it, why are you now saying that in my case it is wrong? It is discriminating and a breach of my constitutional rights pursuant to Article 17.3. I think, Kojo, don't let us waste any time belaboring this particular issue. It is only that people have played politics with it. But Kojo, having people bought cars from government? The governor of Bank of Ghana, when he's going home, the government of all say, aren't their vehicles assessed and given to them at a depreciated value to buy.
And just on the morality argument.
No.
Just as we raised the morality argument, is that a good practice that we should continue?
I'm not saying that it's a good practice that we should continue. All I'm saying is that people should not take the land issue as possibly a crime and an immoral act. When we have instances in our country where government sells its properties to people. Government has sold these cars to people. Government has sold these lands to people. We have sold most of our state-owned enterprises to people. So the principle is never wrong that when you buy something from government, you are immoral. I think we need to traverse that. Otherwise, then we should go and bring aliens from space. So when government's vehicles are run down and the running costs are so high, let's sell it to them, or we can go and dump them in the sea.
Let me bring Nana Kumia in on our conversation at this point. We're 15 minutes away from 10 a.m. this Saturday morning. Nana, for a party that's really another tag of a property-owning democracy, and for a party that is often criticized as, being an elite party that is often interested in acquiring for itself and its members, this politically may not necessarily be serving your cause, would it?
Well, thank you, Kojo, and let me say good morning to your viewers and your listeners. Before I answer your question directly, let me, on a lighter note, it was the Attorney General and who was sued, and Jake joined. So basically, this seems to be the first major case that government has won in the law courts.
That's a bit unfair.
I know, but that seems to be.
But you go ahead.
That seems to be the truth. So that I'm sure would also be important as far as this case is concerned. Now, Kojo, the government of Ghana, for quite a while, has had this policy of giving out public lands that government has acquired to individuals for their private use. That has been a policy of government for a long time. Now, under this policy, there are so many beneficiaries, and I'll read just a couple of beneficiaries for you. And I'm going to show you the NDC beneficiaries, just to paint a balanced picture for you. President John Evans Atta Mills has benefited from this policy of government giving out public lands for private people to use. His file is AC4664. Betty Maud Idrisu has benefited from this policy. Government has given out public lands acquired for public use to her for her private use. Professor Kofi Awuno, Peter Nanfuri, Edward Kojo Salia, Alhaji Mohammed Mumuni, Martin Amidu, 31st December Women's Movement, Ferdinand Ohinikena, Mark Woyongo, J.H. Owusu Achiampong, Baba Kamara, Vincent Asise, Kwame Sarah Mensah. There are a lot more, but I'm just focusing on the political appointees.
And you're saying all of these persons have files?
All of these people have benefited from the government policy of giving out public lands to individuals for their private use. You take President Mills, for example. He was given land acquired for the use of the University of Ghana and was given to him, sold to him to use at somewhere near Ofankor. Now the land is his private property. He's built on it. He's not living there. He's probably rented it out and is probably collecting rent. That land is no more available for the use of the university. As we speak, there are lecturers at the university who are renting, and the University of Ghana is paying. There are students at the university who are renting private accommodation. The property that should be for the use of the university, for public use, is lost because it's been sold to people by Professor Mills.
Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
It is not a good policy, but I'll come to that when I come to the morality issue. I'm just trying to show you the context that Jake's matter fits into. That there's a policy of government giving out government-acquired lands to private individuals. And I've given you a list of political appointees who were given public lands by their government for their private use. I've given you a list. Now, In 1995, the NDC government under President John Rawlings brought what they called the Accra Strategic Plan, which was to rezone government land which were underutilized and give this out for better utilization. In the colonial days, where the whole place was just forest, the colonials acquired these lands from the various Ga stools. 1 acre of land, you have a small 2-3 bedroom building in it, in a 1 acre of land. In those days, 60, 70 years ago, it suited the purposes. Today, those areas have become the center of the city. To have one small property sitting in 1 acre or 2 acres was deemed to be wasteful. So in 1995, the government brought this Accra Strategic Redevelopment Plan to redevelop those lands, that the government lands that you have one small building sitting in 1 acre that they thought was total waste of land. They started a pilot with SNIT in 1995. Now, the area that is opposite the British High Commissioner's residence, so there's roundabout where they call the Akufu roundabout now. You see that area opposite it. That was the first plot in this pilot process. There were 9 buildings on that whole stretch. The government gave it to SNIT on a pilot basis. SNIT developed 67 properties, where previously there were just 9. So the government thought it was a good idea, it was a better utilization of land. So they formalized the process, appointed a committee that was headed by Obed Asamoah, assisted by Donu Nati. And in 1999, the procedures were all drawn up, how the acquisitions or the allocations could be made, and they started the formal acquisitions. So it is under this Accra Strategic Redevelopment Plan that Jake Obechebilamte also bought the property, because that property was rezoned, was redesignated as part of the Accra Strategic Plan. And when you go to that land, you would see that there's a building of about 3 bedrooms sitting in a land of about 1 acre. Falls squarely into the redesignation requirements of the plan. And it was so redesignated. The only difference here is that Jake happened to be living in that property. The people will say he shouldn't have bought it because he was living in it. But if he left, somebody else would have gone and bought it. He chose to exercise that option. There's one peculiar case of a sitting minister of state who incidentally was the Minister for Works and Housing. The sitting minister, Alhaji Abubakar Sadiq. He was the sitting minister for housing. And the land where his official bungalow was redesignated as part of the Accra Redevelopment Strategic Plan. And he was there, and somebody came and told him, I have bought your property and you must leave. That's what happened. Because the Land Commission had redesignated the property and somebody had bought it. He could have exercised the option of buying it. He didn't. And somebody bought it, and the person came and notified him about it, that I've bought your property. And this was the sitting minister for housing. So it is under this policy that Jake bought his property. He went through the procedures that have been laid down in 1999 for acquiring the properties that were sold. He didn't breach any of the procedures, and he bought it. The gentlemen who took him to court, they said that he had bought it in secrecy, it was cronyism, it was inappropriate, it was immoral. The courts of Ghana, by a majority decision of 2-1, threw out all of this and said that all of those things that they had accused Jake Obechebilamte of could not be sustained. There was not a single evidence. Those things they had talked about could be talked about on radio stations and TV stations. But if you came to the courts with these accusations, you must have proof. These government officials, the 2 gentlemen, did not have one shred of evidence. The matter of cronism, like Egbert has clearly demonstrated. The houses or the properties are not designated to be part of the plan by the president. It's done by the Lands Commission. The applications are made to the Lands Commission, and the procedures and the leases are all done by the Lands Commission. John Mahama,
The vice president.
the vice president, also applied. He was allocated. He fulfilled the conditions, and he was allocated. And as we speak, he has a property also bought under the Accra Strategic Redevelopment Plan. You see, so this is the difficulty that we have as a country. Now, as we speak, 3-4 years after the suit by the two gentlemen, who in the last 3.5 years have been members of government, pursuing this matter in the highest court of the land. As we speak, the policy of the Accra Strategic Redevelopment Plan is still maintained. And as we speak, allocations are still going on. That's the morality issue. If you say that Jake, as a sitting or as a somebody close to the government, was not entitled to benefit from the redevelopment plan, how about the allocations that have been made since 2009?
I don't want to mention names, but it's terrible.
I have a sitting judge of the Ghana judiciary complain that the house where she is living in has been rezoned as part of the redevelopment plan and sold. And she was being asked to quit. A sitting judge.
That is when? Now?
Now. A sitting judge. But do you have the name? What's the name?
No, I don't want to.
No, but these are issues that the public should know.
But earlier,
okay.
You mentioned that you thought that the policy was a bad idea.
I thought that the policy, because like you said earlier, Kojo, this is a policy that allowed individuals to acquire public lands.
Individuals, foreign nationals, corporate entities.
Foreigners and all of that. Now, it will come 20 years from now. Your children, my children. This is a developing country. We are still growing. Governance is going to become more complex. We would need public places to house institutions of state. As we speak, there are institutions of state working from rented premises. How? The Labour Commission, for example, was working in rented premises at Asylum Down, paying huge rent.
So it's a bad policy, you think? Now,
It is a policy that I believe should not be sustained.
Is this your view, or was that the view of the Kufuor administration?
No, my view.
That's your personal view.
The policy was, because we also heard about all of this policy and availability of land. Some of us didn't take it. Akufo-Addo, for example, didn't take it. Mills took it. President Mills, when he was offered the public lands by the university for his private use, he took it. Akufo-Addo, for example, didn't take it. I didn't take it. But you see, that is the policy that is there. Until it is repealed, if you don't take it, other people will take it. Now, if you say that it's a moral issue, then you must tackle it holistically. Because it's not only Jake Obechebi Lamte who took advantage of the policy. There are several others. And as in the last 3 years, there are several people who have been allocated these lands by the NDC government.
Now, let me quickly get onto the phone lines. As I mentioned to my guests, to my viewers and to listeners as well, we're expecting to be joined shortly by the Honourable Member of Parliament for Adenta, Mr. Kojo Edu-Asare. Mr. George Nate is a member of the government communication team. They'll both join us very shortly, and you can hear their views as well. But I want to get onto the phone lines and speak to lawyer Senanu Kwabla. He's counsel for Mr. Okudzeto Blakwa and Mr. Omane Boama. They were the two individuals who sued the Attorney General, and then later we are told Jacob Obechebi Lamte applied to join the suit because he was a person of interest to that particular matter. So if I have lawyer Senanu Kwabla on the line, let me quickly hop onto the phone lines. Lawyer Kwabla, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
I thank you very much for joining us on Newsfile. My friend here in the studio, Egbert Fable, raised a number of legal questions that if indeed your clients had a genuine issue, they should have raised it with the Lands Commission, which is a body corporate that can be sued and can sue for acts concerning it, and if they thought, and perhaps with your learned advice, that this sale was illegal, perhaps that's where you should have addressed your concern. Secondly, there's the issue by the ruling of the Supreme Court that you failed to adduce evidence to back your arguments of cronyism and abuse of power or conflict of interest, as we have heard in the media. Let me get some reactions from you.
Oh, yes, gentlemen. I am very glad that you brought up some of these issues. I think.
Can you hear me, Lawyer Kobla?
Yes, I can hear you.
I think if you just move a little bit.
The gentleman who is speaking for on behalf of the NPP raised a lot of issues. Now you want me to sit in my home and be a second chamber for the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, they have taken their decision on the matter. But the point of the matter is that I am an NDC sympathizer. I want to react to the issues raised by that gentleman. He made all kinds of allegations. Does he know that when Professor Atamil, he was at the university for so many years as a lecturer and a professor. He was in a bungalow in the university, but he never bought that bungalow. Is he aware? He never bought the bungalow in which he was. Many of the lecturers, you go to Lebanon, they are in duty posts. Not them have been given the chance. Bungalow.
Lawyer Kobla, can you hear me?
What does it mean?
Can you hear me, sir, lawyer?
Properties.
Mr. Kobla, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, now two things. One, I need you to move. No, I've lost him on that line. When I do get him back on that line, and perhaps my producers will prompt him, he's got to move a little bit so that we can hear him better. And then I just need a bit of clarity. I was asking the legal questions that were raised by Egbert. He's suggesting he wants to respond to the political questions instead. I just want some clarity so that we can deal with
I even want to add more
on that
more
front.
legal issues. No, so that it will be addressed.
Hold it for me. Hopefully when he comes back onto the line, we can do that. We've just hit 10 o'clock on Newsfile this morning. Let me read some of the comments that are coming through. Paul from Kumasi says, is it the policy which is problematic or Jake who has gone wrong? Eric Tamate Sikache says, morality is subjective, and due to this, we have laws that guide human behavior in a country. Violating the rule of law is bad for governance. The law must be supreme since no one is above it. Daniel Oforiboating says, the law doesn't look for the truth, but rather the facts. And also the facts aren't necessarily the truth. Morality is different from law. Audu Lash Jr. says, government has a right to reverse its earlier decision, and that is exactly what Cabinet has done to protect the interests of the state. I think Cabinet should be commended for this swift decision on the sale of government lands and properties to political appointees. The executive or the president has not in any way interfered with the verdict of the Supreme Court. Adams Mohammed from Pankrono Estate in Kumasi says, if Jake's purchase of the state bungalow is illegal, is it illegal when the vice president also benefited from the sale, from the same policy? Send us your thoughts, 1422 across networks, or put your thoughts on our Facebook or facebook.com/joy997. Let me repeat, we're expecting the Honorable Kojo Eduasa, a member of Parliament for Adenta, to join us in the studios. George Nate is a member of the government communication team. He earlier prompted us that he was going to be a bit late, so we're expecting him as well to join us in the studios. I'm still expecting to get back on the line Lawyer Sena Nukwabla. I'm asking him a few legal questions. Do we have him back on the line? Do we have him back on the line?
Yes.
Lawyer, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, and now the connection is better. I just want some clarity before we go ahead. I was asking a few legal questions. You're saying you want to respond to the political questions rather?
Yes, you know the reason why?
Tell me, sir.
The gentleman who is sitting down there, he knows that under the ethics of the bar, when a lawyer in a case, and the case is decided by the Supreme Court, you don't sit somewhere and criticize it. He's raising issues that will let me regurgitate all the arguments that we put across to the Supreme Court. That is unfair. But more to the point, the gentleman who is the NDP communication guru over there, he's sitting there against the president. I want to answer to that.
Okay, and
I will not answer any person of those legalities she's talking about the Supreme Court decision here. I will never do that. I will not sit here and criticize the Supreme Court.
No. I'm not asking you to criticize. I'm not asking you to criticize the Supreme Court. And indeed, there's nothing. Hold on. Lawyer Kobla.
Yes.
Please take your time for me. I'm not asking you to criticize the Supreme Court. And really,
no,
there's
you
nothing.
are not asking me.
Hold it, sir. Hold it, sir.
He's dealing in legalese, which you may not have the opportunity to ask it to ponder over. I've pondered over the questions he's asking. He wants me to, on the radio, come and criticize the Supreme Court. I won't do that.
No, sir. No, sir. I'm not asking you to criticize the Supreme Court.
February is doing that. I will not do that.
Okay, so please listen to me,
answer
sir.
the political questions.
Listen to me, sir. Listen to me, sir. I will let you answer the political questions.
Listen to me. These are the legal issues. Listen to me. Why we went to the Supreme Court and invoked the original decision of the Supreme Court in respect of a state bungalow. And actually, the epithet of this case is the state bungalow case. We did not take Jacob Ochilante to court in 2008. He came and joined the case in 2011. He came and joined the case himself. We did not sue him before the Supreme Court. He came and joined the case. That is the thief of the matter. And the thief of the matter is that it's a state bungalow case. You see, you are trying to compare mangoes and apples. Where you talk about there was a policy in 1995, 1999 that state properties are supposed to be redeveloped, redesignated, or whatever. We are talking about a specific state bungalow case. His Excellency Professor J. Mills has been a lecturer in the University of Ghana for so many years, and he was in a duty post. He never bought it. That is the issue. If you want to compare, use the don't change the goalposts. That is all I want to say.
Mr. Kobla, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so let me get on the same page with you.
Yes.
You took this case to court, and it may be helpful for you to also educate the public about why you did that and what you were seeking to achieve when you did that.
Thank you very much.
Now, hold on, sir.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question. You sued the Attorney General.
Yes.
For what exactly, sir?
Originally, in 2008, when I commenced this case, I issued a writ against 3 entities. In law, when you say persons, it's also equivalent to individuals and corporates and so on. So, three persons: the Attorney General, the Lands Commission, and the Registrar of the Land Party Registry. These were the 3 entities.
And what exactly were you asking the court to do?
We want the court to declare that transaction in which a minister of state has been given the opportunity to serve this country, to have a peace of mind, to be very close to the seat of government, given the location of the property, that property, we want that property to remain a property on behalf of Ghanaians now and forever. And that they should declare that transaction null and void. This is the piece of our case.
So please help me understand you. You were asking the Supreme Court to declare that transaction null and void.
Null and void.
On what
I want
basis?
To simplify everything short of all the legalese. This is exactly what we were asking for.
That's fine. And you and you're asking them to declare it null and void on what basis, sir?
On the basis that under Article 20 of the 1992 Constitution, every state property which particularly a bungalow, which from 1912 up until today, which has been there, put up by the people of this country, for the governors of the country, for people who occupy that duty post, for them to live in peace and devote their attention mainly to government, it should remain so. And we did that because Article 20 says that once it is for that public office, public policy, public office is for public duty, public interest, it must remain so. Read Article 25 of the 1992 Constitution, and you see it is there. All these issues on the article we are referring to, that did not go to the crux of the matter. The crux of the matter, which they well knew, was Article 25 of the 1992 Constitution.
And Article 25, if I may read, says any property compulsorily.
Yes.
And I'm reading it for the benefit of my viewers and listeners.
So that people who are not West, they can understand.
Any property compulsorily taken, possession of, or acquired in the public interest or for a public purpose shall be used only in the public interest or for the public purpose for which it was acquired.
Merci beaucoup. That is it. That is it. That is the gist of my case. Nothing more.
This is wrong.
Where you
short of all these legalists, they want to mystify the law. This is exactly my case before Ghanaians. This is the case that I put before Ghanaians.
You were in court as well. You were in court as well. What was a specific what was a specific pronouncement of the Supreme Court with reference to this argument that you raised, that pursuant to Article 25, they should declare this transaction null and void. What was their specific response to you, sir?
They rejected it by majority decision of 6-3. Agreed. But you know what? Under Article 4 of the 1992 Constitution, if you read it holus bolus, that is, you read it in its entirety, you will realize that the Supreme Court did not make any specific orders in respect of the decisions that they had made. They did not make any order on anybody, on the executive, on the chief executive of this country, on the Lands Commission, on the Land Title Registry. Do this, do that, do this, do that. They did not do that. So they just made a declaration, a declaratory judgment. And that is it. So if His Excellency's cabinet come out and say, we, for the benefit of Ghanaians now and the future, that we are not going to make that transaction go through. What is wrong with that? What kind of, where did they read in that particular provision, Article 4, Article 2 and Article 4 of the 1992 Constitution, saying that the government of Ghana today is in contempt of the Supreme Court, and therefore they are asked to constitute themselves as another Supreme Court of Ghana? None whatsoever.
A few follow-up questions.
None, I repeat, none whatsoever.
A few follow-up questions, sir. Subsequently, when Mr. Obeche Bilamte applied to join the suit, did you amend what you were asking the courts to do in any way?
Of course.
What were you then asking the courts to do after he applied to join?
You know that when somebody joins a suit, the person will come with the person's pleadings or affirmings, and you ought to react to them. Definitely, this case we could have finished in 2010, but because he joined the suit, you know, he had elongated the period for the case to terminate in the bosom of the Supreme Court. Whatever he said, I had to answer.
And is it the case that in your answer, then you made the argument that it's marked of cronyism and conflict of interest and abuse of office?
Look,
did you make those arguments?
All that in 2008, they were there. They were already there. He saw the wall, the brick wall. He came and hit his own head against it. He passed his own head against it. Were there. And then later on, he turned around to say that that was not the proper place to come. And by a unanimous decision of 9-0, he was knocked out. But at the end of the day, in the substantive decision of the Supreme Court, they said we didn't have a case. But at the same time, the Supreme Court did not make specific orders. How come today people are on rooftops saying that His Excellency's cabinet has positioned itself into another Supreme Court? Please, I beg to differ. That will not wash.
Do you have any instructions from your clients to take this matter any further?
I will not be in a position. This is a matter of confidentiality between me and my client. Please, you are a journalist and you know that it's not everything that I can talk to you about my client. Wherein lies my calling as a lawyer? My God, please give me a break.
You also wanted to respond to some of the political arguments.
Give me a break. Even what you are doing there, I don't buy it. You don't allow NDC, you don't allow CPP, you don't allow PCP, you don't allow PPP, you don't allow the other parties to partake. Why do you, as it were, make the whole gamut of discourse in this country politically to be just about MPP?
Mr. Kwabla, if I may just respond to you, my guests include Mr. Kojo Eduasari, Mr. George Nate. They are yet to join me on the show.
They are yet to join you on the show. But look at the bulk of the things that you have said against so many people. And somebody who has been a professor, who has taught many of the people down there. But many of us as practicing lawyers today, somebody who has a teaching post in the university, he never works, and you want to make that as a parameter for the argument that any government officer in your bungalow should also buy one.
And
the state bungalow case.
And as you mentioned,
listen to me, the case of the professor is on a different queue. Here is a professor who there was a balloting by the association of the he belonged to. And then this Oyarofa thing came. Do you know where Oyarofa is? Do you know where the said Mugu bungalow is? My God, please, let the Ghanaians know the truth.
As you
I don't want
mentioned,
to pontificate, please.
As
This
you
morning,
mentioned.
I don't want to pontificate.
As you
I beg you.
mentioned, Mr. Kobla, Nana Kumia's comments also attracted your interest, and you wanted to respond to
He
some of
made
the political
a
part.
lot of allegations there.
Okay,
And
so please speak
all
to the
the time
political
he makes
parts
sweeping
of it.
statements. I disagree with where he is talking about the chief executive of this country. He wants to treat him in such a way because of politics. Please, he should give the country a break. We are defending. We know what is going on.
Mr. Kobla, are you with me?
Even my line has gone off.
No, it's still on. You are with me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mr. Kobla?
You can hear.
Go you.
Because I can hear you. Okay, well, we're 15 minutes
Koyo.
after 10. Perhaps we have to drop the line and then call him back because it seems he cannot seem to
Koyo,
to hear us. We're 15 minutes after 10. Let me just remind our viewers and our listeners, please send us your thoughts by text 1422 across networks or 1760 across networks. I'll share them with the rest of the world. Let me just remind you, we're expecting Mr. Kojo Eduasari, Mr. George Nate to join us for our conversations. Egret, he mentioned a number of legal arguments.
But I think that my
quickly go
learned
to-
friend,
to
Mr.
respond to
Senanu, has completely misunderstood what is going on here. Nobody mentioned his name. 1, 2. I have not criticized the Supreme Court, and I'm not afraid of criticizing the Supreme Court. I'll criticize the Supreme Court if I have to, and I'll criticize the Supreme Court on the basis of law, right? I'll not scandalize the courts. I do not do that. That is not my stock in trade. But in any event, Kojo, simple elementary things that Mr. Senanu raised. You see, we're on radio. We are discussing and learning from one another, and obviously also imparting. We learn also from people who test. Article 25(6) thereof of the 19. You took your time to copiously read it. Every lawyer in this country knows that in the case of Ni Olaya Muntia versus Ghana Telecom, which case's background is that? You know the cable and wireless place at Bubuashi, when the then Ghana Telecom, now Vodafone, it used to be a cable and wireless unit point. When Ghana Telecom decided that it was going to turn it into block of flats for its employees, the Asre Manche, then I think it was Ni Olaya Muntia, who is the owner of the land, went to court. The matter went as far as to the Court of Appeal. And the Court of Appeal made one striking commentary on the Article 25 says that all public lands, if you cannot use it for the public, whatever, you should give the right of first option, you should return it to the original owner. The Court of Appeal held in that case that the 1992 Constitution cannot be applied retroactively. And so what it means is that this provision in the 1992 Constitution, Article 25 says thereof, affects only lands which have been acquired by the state or the public following the coming into force of the 1992 Constitution on January 7, 1993. So all those lands that were taken before then. And the Supreme Court has upheld this point. It is simple, try basic law. In fact, beyond that case, a lot of people have gone to court with some of these things, families, and even, if you like, traditional councils, and they've been shown the door as a result of that provision. Our law, if you look at the same constitution, it will tell you our law is made up of statutes and case law. Every law student knows this. So that sometimes when there is a basis for disagreement with regards to the provisions of a law or the constitution, judicial determination settles it. Kojo number 2. Another thing that I will, without fear of equivocation, point out to cabinet as to why I think they are wrong in their fiat is that, you see, God, even God, the owner of the universe, on the day,
I had a guest this week who doesn't believe in him. So
yeah, I remember.
That's a very
on the
contentious
day,
argument.
I'm a Christian, a Bible believing one at that.
Go ahead.
On the day that Adam and Eve had their problems with God in the Garden of Eden, if you know your Bible very well, God, as the owner of the universe, he respected the principle of audiogram pattern, or that you must hear a man before you condemn. God didn't say that because I own the universe. Adam and Eve, you have eaten the forbidden fruit, so this is your end. God called Adam and gave him the right to be heard before he was condemned. He asked him, why have you eaten of the forbidden fruit? Adam gave his explanations and pointed to Eve and all those things. It means that even in heaven, there is the principle of audiogram pattern. The cabinet, somebody is holding a legal document. You go and sit in caucus where Jake is not given the opportunity to defend himself, to explain himself, and you say that I have violated your rights. Is this not a breach of the rules of natural justice, to wit the audiogram pattern rule? In any event, what is a fiat? Kojo, no, let's be very fair. It used to be the case in this republic, right, that even before you sue the government, you had to go to, what do you call it? You had to go to the Attorney General. You write to him, and the Attorney General will give you a fiat to enable you sue the action, to sue. By 1979, in the 1979 Constitution, Article 211, and I'll read, Article 2111, it says, where a person has a claim against the government, that claim may be enforced as of right by proceedings taken against the government for that purpose without the grant of a fiat or the use of the process known as petition of right. So by 1979, the concept of fiat had been done away with in our.
But in fairness, what government did was to issue a statement about a cabinet decision.
So Kojo, who introduced the word fiat?
I've heard
in
commentary.
The discourse.
I've heard commentary.
In the discourse.
I've heard commentary.
Yeah, fiat is just a Latin word. Fiat is just a Latin word which translated into English and also has judicial implications, means let it be done. So if indeed government has issued a fiat, then it means that government has actually said that finito. But I know that in this country, cabinet issues directives. Cabinet does not issue fiat.
Like I mentioned.
No, somebody should show me where in the 1992 Constitution provisions relating to the cabinet, where the cabinet is empowered to issue fiat.
Like I mentioned, in fairness to government as well, government only issued a statement.
I'm not being unfair to government.
About a cabinet decision.
I'm not being unfair to so let them say it's...
moving the conversation forward, there are many who hold the view that this policy itself is a bad policy, and that at some point we must cut the tapes, draw the line, and at least protect what is left of our state assets and our state
I will
lands.
speak to that, but
what's the legal way of doing that?
The legal way of doing that, it is difficult. Legal rights have been created already. Brigadier Nunu Mensah, in 1970 something, where he lives at airport, he bought it from Lands Commission.
But my question is,
no, I'm coming.
How so what is left?
It has to be protected. The question is that nobody should disturb the honestness. We will say that what is gone is gone. Going forward, let's stop this. But don't let people create the impression that it is only one group of people in this republic who have bought government lands. They used to use even the term stolen. And some of us came out and said, listen, if you think anybody has stolen anything, the police headquarters is there. Drive there, lodge a complaint with IGP and let the person be picked up for stealing.
Does a cabinet decision necessarily resolve this, or would we as a country need to do some other things?
It doesn't. If you also ask me, I'll also add another thing. I'm against the principle of us paying for the phone bills, the fuel, whatever, of government people, and even housing government ministers when civil servants have nowhere to stay. Civil servants who go and push paper every day, they have nowhere to stay. And a minister whose life is based on a 4-year tenure, and even sometimes at the pleasure of the president, has a house. Let's take that. Let's stop ex gratia. Let's stop all those things, because they're all a drain on the economy. At least those who buy those government, they pay the money into the consolidated fund, and it is used to pay people. So if we want to look at this and say, why do we buy fuel for ministers? Why do we buy four-wheel drives for ministers?
And
why do we give MPs car loans?
At this moment, before I go for my next bit,
when the civil servants do not have car loans.
Before I go for my next bit, Egbert, what I need to do is to put on your lawyer's hat for me and give me some advice. Give the nation some advice. If we want a very legal way, you are saying that what has happened does not amount to a legal way of addressing this problem.
Yes.
If we want a legal way of addressing this problem, I think lawyer Kwabla used the expression, maybe let me borrow it, holus. I don't know if that works here. What's the best way to do that?
I would say all this is hocus pocus.
What's the best way to do this?
Koyo, let's just draw a fine line. The remainder of government's lands that are left, you see, what uses are we going to put them? Looking at where we are going as a nation, are we trying to still increase government expenditure? Do you know how much money is spent by government to fix bungalows?
I know, but talk about the legal ways of doing this.
The legal ways of doing that. If you want to terminate people's leases, go to the Lands Commission, which granted the leases. But I don't think that anybody can do anything to affect what has been done in the past. Let's just pass a law. Clearly saying that no government lands are for sale. But you see, it is not only in Accra. Takoradi, every regional capital,
in Kumasi,
people buy government lands.
It's been done.
So why do we make it appear as if buying government property is an offense?
Now you also hold the personal view that this whole policy prescription must be looked at again. What would be your suggestion on how best to deal with it moving on?
Because I have said to you that all these allocations are in pursuit of a policy laid down in 1995 by the NDC. It is that policy that has allowed all those people who have bought government properties to buy them. Let government stop the policy from today onwards. In the last 3 years, while this case was pending against Jacob Echebilante's taking advantage of the policy is still continuing. And as we speak, allocations are being made under the policy. And I gave you the example of a sitting judge who has been told that she must move out of her official bungalow at Ridge because he has been rezoned, he has been redesignated, and somebody has bought it just last year, as we sit. So where is the moral weight of the government in this? See the land, when this matter came, they were saying that one of the judges said that we needed properties for doctors and so on to stay in. And the NDC is so happily parroting this. The lands opposite 37 Military Hospital, that vast stretch of land opposite, is being rezoned. There were public servants working for the Republic of Ghana, staying in the bungalows and flats in that property, about 20 or so bungalows. All the bungalows have been razed to the ground as we speak. And somebody is going to redevelop that place into a shopping center. And you have 37 Military Hospital. You have nurses. You have medical doctors. You have medical personnel staying at 37 without accommodation nearby. So where is the moral weight of this government?
So you think the policy
should be stopped, revoked immediately for the government to even have any weight. But you can't do it retroactively. Now, if you are going to even talk about the morality, how about all those allocations that have been made to NDC people? Why are we not bringing all of them together and questioning them, about questioning their morality and the allocations that are going on as we speak? There's one case where the chairman of a bank appointed by the government is said to have bought the property of the bank where the area manager was living in. So, you know, now let me deal quickly with some of the issues that the
I just have 4 minutes.
Lawyer raised. Kojo, President Atta Mills's official bungalow at Legon was not for sale. Jake's bungalow was for sale. So this business of Atta Mills didn't buy his official bungalow is neither here or there. The issue is about the buying of public property for private use. It's a very simple concept. I don't understand why anybody can't understand it. That University of Ghana land, University of Ghana is a public institution. It does work for the public in teaching and in taking care of his workers. That land that has been sold to Professor Mills is now beyond the use of the public. And as we speak, he has developed it. It is his private property. The gentleman will say it is at Oyarifa. And so what? Tomorrow, Oyarifa will be like a very expensive place. Why? When they were giving out those lands at Ridge and so on, they were jungles, forests. But today, they are prime properties. Oyarifa, when they finish those roads and so on, will be prime property. So it's neither here nor there. What is at stake is that there's a policy of the state giving out public lands to private individuals. That is the policy we must attack. That policy and the version where the Accra lands redemarcation, those were started by the NDC. If that policy was not there, Jacob Echebilante could not have bought the property. John Mahama could not have bought the property. All those people who have bought the properties could not have bought the properties. So change the policy. So the matter is not whether somebody bought a property or not. The thing is that you had a law, you had a regulation that has been in existence, and that makes it possible. If they don't change it, look at the residence of the Army Commander. Was it the Chief of Staff? Near the that famous hotel.
Gold House or M Plaza.
Gold House, M Plaza. That vast land. Go and see what is happening there today. Chinese people are doing something. Nobody knows what is happening there. Obviously, it's been let out. Opposite that property, you find high-rise condominiums going up. They've all been sold. So it is the policy that is the problem, not the people who have taken advantage of the policy.
Well, 28 minutes after 10. Let me read a few more of your thoughts, and then I'll go for a break. My guest, Mr. George Nate, has just joined us. I'll give him a lot of latitude because he hasn't been here to respond to some of the issues that have been commented on, and then we'll speak about the two other court cases that I mentioned before we move to our two other subjects this morning. Ado Asamoah from Kumasi says the cabinet action is a total disregard for the rule of law and a disgrace to the citizenry. Out T from Agona Radio says, ignoring the orders of the Supreme Court is tantamount to gross disrespect to rule of law. In fact, the dignity of Ghana has been brought into a shameless ground. Well, just a quick correction. We're told that the Supreme Court didn't actually make any orders. They just made a declaration that it was not illegal, as had been argued by the applicant. Abdallah from Tamale says, why are they selling public property to individual persons? It means in the next 10 years, government will not have any bungalow or land. Ernest Thompson from Tishinungwa says, all this could have been avoided if all those lands had been given to SNIT, as was done at cantonments. It will have led to better utilization. This is Newsfile. We're on Joy 99.7 FM in Accra and on our affiliates across the country. We're also live on the Joy News channel on Multi-TV. You can watch us live online by going to multitvworld.com/streams, or you can listen to us live on myjoyonline.com. Mr. George Nate is a member of the government's communication team. I'm going to read a few texts, and then, George, I'll give you unfettered access to respond to some of the comments that have been made in your absence. Schiffman from Atonsu says, per lawyer Ablakwe's submission, I think you're saying lawyer Kwabla, I now understand why the NDC legal team are always found wanting in court and keep embarrassing the state. The NDC legal team must get their facts right and spare us these cheap attacks on the judiciary. Kofi Kisiedu from Equiapim says, this is the way the NDC lawyers always behave instead of addressing the issues. Why wouldn't they lose their cases in court? I wonder why their lawyer was raving and ranting for nothing. Benjamin Osebons, who says, in the court of law, propaganda and bitterness, in the court of law, propaganda and bitterness does not count. Rather, sustained evidence or substantiated evidence is what you want to say, is what makes one's case. Tell Jake to take it cool because he has a big judgment debt awaiting in the very near future. This government must be voted out. Abdul Majid says, listening to your interview with a lawyer, I'm beginning to understand why the NDC, led by lawyer Kwabla and David Annan, will lose a lot of cases in court. In fairness, they are not members of the Attorney General's department. They are members of a group known as the NDC legal team.
Amidu says
but that's a case we'll be discussing later. They are very different from the Attorney General's department. Joe Mensah says moral issues are dealt with in church by pastors and priests and not in the law courts. If the NDC is now shifting the issue on moral issues, why did they choose to send the case to the Supreme Court where issues are dealt with facts and not propaganda? George, welcome. Let's hear you.
Thank you. A very good morning to yourself, Kojo, and Chief Vandal and Nana Komia. A very good morning to our viewers and listeners too. I must apologize. I got this invitation at very short notice. It's not intentional that I'm late. I had to drive in from Agbozume this morning.
We went to see Agbozume.
We wish our brother, Honorable Fifi Avikwete, all the best in his primaries this morning. I'm sure voting would most likely have started. I left the place around 8:30 this morning, and the delegates had started arriving. To the substantive issue, I managed to pick up signal from somewhere around Sugakope, and I heard the closing remarks of my brother Egbert, and I take strong exception to many of the things Egbert said in his submission, and then Nakomi also said. You see, we must get serious in this country. We must.
Are you repeating that anyone of us is not serious?
Egbert, I hope today you will
I
not.
also take very strong
I hope
exception.
today you will not try to do what you did with Musala.
To the comment that we ought to get serious in this country, especially coming against the backdrop that you have just said that you take strong exceptions to some of the things I have said as well as
Egbert, that is why there's a pen. That's why there's a pen and paper, and you have a tab in front of you. Jot down your points. Please jot down your points.
I will not.
Let me just make a quick point. Let me just make a quick point. Sometimes in the use of language, people take offense, and my encouragement will be for all of us to use language that everybody's comfortable with.
No, when I say I think we should get serious in this country, if Egbert, if it pinches him, that's fine. Well, the point for me is this. We can't sit down here and assume high ivory tower positions of morality when our hands are not clean, when our hands are tainted with the very things we seek to speak about. Look, for me, I honestly believe that this policy must be scrapped. And I think the Cabinet and His Excellency have taken the first steps to scrapping this policy by the last Cabinet memo or release from Cabinet, which sought to say that no land, that particular land, would not be sold, and that no government appointee would be the recipient of any state land. Let's bear in mind, the Accra Redevelopment Policy is not law, it is not legislation. It is a simple cabinet policy, a decision by one cabinet that they wanted to do this.
In 1995.
This is also another cabinet which decides that in the supreme interest of the people of Ghana, it would put a stop to it. And that clearly is what President Mills has done. You see, Nana has put out a long list of people supposed to have benefited who are NDC members. I will not sit here and say I subscribe or support the actions. I honestly believe that anyone, be you NDC NPP, who has acquired state property after serving in the government on a moral basis, I have issues with it. Same way I have issues with auction vehicles. Because I believe that if we are going to sell those vehicles at a cheaper price, the importer must have first right to buy it. On that same basis, on that same ground of morality, I differ from any state appointee or government appointee, BU, NDC, MPP, QFZ, who has acquired state bungalow or state property. I choose to disagree with that purchase. Nana tries to put President Mills in that bracket, but that was an exercise in futility. President Mills, as a lecturer in the 70s, I think 1977 to be precise, the university had acquired, the state had acquired vast amounts of lands, stretching from as far as Ofanko all the way to where we know Ashiashi today, and even parts of the airport residential area for University of Ghana, and stretching as far as Kwabinya for the School of Nuclear Sciences. That was the vastness of the land that had been acquired for University of Ghana. As the university took shape, some of these lands were released back to the original owners. Today, the Ghana Atomic Energy lands, which are University of Ghana lands, part of it was released by the Esto Akufo administration to the owners of the land, the Ghans too. The Onomakadai family and the other families involved there. You understand? And today it's been sold to private individuals. Part of that land too, the university council, in its own wisdom, decided that they wanted to give accommodation to their staff. And look, most of the state institutions today, if you come into my constituency, Ningo Pram Pram, at the Pram Pram area, so many organizations have come and bought large tracts of land. Okay, and what they do is they have a credit union where they help their staff to buy. So a staff takes a member of staff who can't afford to get 80 million to buy a plot of land flat, applies to the officer's credit union, and you pay instrumentally. It is deducted from your salary. And that is the same scheme which was used on the University of Ghana campus for their lands at Ofanko. And President Mills, as a senior lecturer at the time, applied for one. It was a scheme to house university lecturers. It wasn't a scheme to house university students and then Professor Mills as a lecturer went and took it. So to sit here and try, as Nana did, to paint a picture that today there are lecturers who do not have accommodation. Today there are students who do not have accommodation, and it is because President Mills bought a land in 1970 at Ofanko. Today, in 2012, Ofanko is still not a high, it is not even a medium brow area when you're looking at the areas in Accra. And for you to sit down here and want to juxtapose land in the 70s in Ofanko, which was in the middle of nowhere at that time, to Rich, and apart a 1 acre plus land in Rich today in 2012, I think it's gross disservice to the general public.
A quick follow-up question. If I heard him well, his argument was about the principle of state-acquired land for purpose A, which was now being divested to private individuals for the explanation that the acquirer of the land no longer had the same purpose A, in mind for it, and therefore was being divested to private individuals. I didn't hear him exactly make the argument about where the land is located.
Obviously, he wouldn't make that argument because then it beats the position he's making. I am making that argument.
In your submission, you are saying that there's a difference between where the land is located and where the land is a prime area, irrespective of the principle that
No. Kojo, you're misunderstanding the point I'm making.
So then let me ask a question and then you can help me get your understanding clearly. He's arguing that in principle, it is wrong that land which has been acquired by the state for purpose A, if the state decides it doesn't need it for whatever reason for purpose A, it shouldn't be sold to private individuals the way it is being done. You are saying that that in itself is not a problem, but it's about where the land is located?
That's not what I've said. What I have said clearly is that I am against the sale of state land. If the state acquires land and acquires it for purpose A, and for certain reasons, purpose A can no longer be met, and the state feels strongly that it must let go of that land, I am a gun. I believe, and I am of the strong opinion, that the land should be returned to the original owners.
Okay.
That is my position. On the issue of the Ofankor lands,
yes,
that land was acquired for the University of Ghana.
Purpose A.
Purpose A. For the University of Ghana.
To be used as what?
To be used for the University of Ghana. The University of Ghana's council, they have vast land. They cite that that parcel of land, that part of their land, should be used for lecturers' accommodation. That is still for the University of Ghana. It is not lecturers from University of Science and Technology. University of Ghana lecturers must be given accommodation. And so let us accommodate them on this land.
And as you seek to educate us, doesn't matter whether that person remains a lecturer or is no longer a lecturer.
Well, clearly, for me, I believe that if that ends up as part of his severance package, okay, fair and square. But then if he acquires it as a university lecturer, and you see, I believe that the process, if you look at the time the president bought that land and when he left the university, clearly, it wasn't something he did like Jake's own, where you are saying 2008 and 2000 and they leave office in 2008.
If he acquires it as a lecturer and it's even as part of a severance package, there's no big deal with it.
Once he has served and he has paid for it, it's a university property. That land was gotten for the university. To try and sit here and juxtapose that against what has happened in the Jake case is unfortunate.
Proceed.
The likes of K.T. Hammond, the likes of Matthew Poku Prempeh, the likes of Shelley Ayoko Botry, Obosi Sai Kofi, they all acquired state lands. Egbert, who sits here, his wife, Nanaya Abina Asante Fable, acquired state land. Okay, she acquired state land. There's a school of thought that says it was Egbert who acquired it, but acquired it in his wife's name. Okay, you see, but then the point must be made here. Egbert sits here and sits in that high ivory tower and says that no, we should not even buy. We should not even buy petrol for our public servants again. We should not buy vehicles for them. He doesn't even see why we should give them a loan, MPs a loan to buy their own vehicles. Okay, yet he fails to tell Ghanaians that he's a beneficiary, or his family is a beneficiary of state land. His wife bought a 0.33 acre land at Cantonment for 82.5 million. That is 8,250 Ghana cedis. 8,250 Ghana cedis in Cantonment. What valuation was used for it? This is the kind of rot in the system we're talking about. And I believe that if we all want, he who seeks equity or justice must come before equity with clean hands. You can't sit here with your hands tainted and want to sit in a high ivory tower and want to lambast government and say that the two young men who have gone before the courts of this land seeking justice as citizens of this republic. And you listen, if you were in court, Egbert wasn't in court that day. I was in court when judgment was read. Okay, when Brobe sought to, his lordship, Justice Brobe, sought in his lead judgment, he sought to expatiate on the principle of evidence, and he touched slightly on public policy. You juxtapose that against his lordship, William Atukuba's opposing lead judgment, and you could see clearly that Justice Atukuba took the interest of this nation clearly. I'll give you the example which Justice Brobe gave in his lead judgment for the benefit of our listeners and my brothers here who might not have been in court. He said that if land was acquired and the use was public, and the use remained public, once the use of that land, the need for that land had not changed, he did not see why Jake should be deprived. Then he goes ahead and gives examples. He picks the old Accra racecourse and said that the Rawlings administration acquired part of the old racecourse and put up the Accra International Conference Center. The racecourse was for public use. The conference center today is still for public use. Nobody has a problem with that. He then says Makola number 2 market. Part of it was reclaimed and used for a car park, which today we call Rawlings Park. That again, the use is still public. And then he makes the most baffling, to my young law student mind, he makes the most baffling analogy here, where he juxtaposes those two examples, Conference Center and Rollins Park, and says that if it was a state bungalow meant to house public officials, and the lease that is being given to Jake, the purpose for that land was to put up a public accommodation, then it is the same use. His Lordship, I wish to differ, and I wish to ask a simple question. When I go and rent the Conference Center today for 8,000 Ghana cedis, it goes into the public purse. When I go to Rollins Park and I pay 2 Ghana cedis to park there, it goes into the public purse. When Jake puts up that building, if he's allowed to put it up, and the apartments there go at the normal rate they go for of $3,000 per apartment per month, meaning an annual rent of $36,000, where does that money go to? Which public purse does it go to? That you tell me the use is still public. And you see, that is where Atuguba distinguished his judgment and said, look, we must understand that public policy is necessary. We must understand the use of public, the need for us to, you see, you cannot say that we are going to run this country on technicalities and throw away our morals. Where is the moral high ground which the opposition and their spokespersons choose to take? You see, that is why when I started, I said, let us get serious in this country. Let us move away from sensationalism and trying to score cheap political points to asking ourselves, what future are we leaving for our children and their children's children? Honorable E.T. Mensah occupied that bungalow from 1996 to 2000 as Minister for Youth and Sports. If Honorable E.T. Mensah on leaving office in 2000 had bought that bungalow, would Jake Obechebilamte have come to meet that bungalow? Clearly not.
Government has been trying to, in its view, redress what wrong that it says in the supreme interest of the people of Ghana has been suffered and needs to be redressed. And it sought to take a cabinet decision and make public that decision that government no longer seeks to sell that property. There are a number of arguments that indeed that property has been sold and that the premise of the argument was the legality of the sale. That's what went to court in the first place. There are some who have said that it may be a better idea moving on that this whole policy thing is stopped. But that the way government seeks to do it actually breeds executive lawlessness.
Clearly not. I think people, you see, and that's the beauty of the law. You can look, the law is a double-edged sword, and it has two sides. You can look at it from whichever side you wish to see it. You can see it as a half-full glass or a half-empty glass. You see, the point must be made here. The President and his cabinet have not breached any article of the Constitution. I've heard people trumpet Article 2, 4 and 5 and all of that and say the President is in contravention. If they think the President is in contravention, it's their legal right and their civil right to initiate impeachment proceedings. And let's see if it will hold water. You see, look, that is once again why I say let's get serious in this country. You have senior lawyers put their own political spin on legal interpretation of the Constitution, and you ask yourself, where do we draw the line between politics and academia? These are supposed to be people who are teaching the next generation of lawyers in this country, and they engage in setting gymnastics with the Constitution.
So let me ask you a direct question.
Which you ask yourself.
Let me ask you a direct question. What's the premise of the argument initially that sale was illegal?
Well, you see, I heard Counsel Senano make a point that if you take the majority decision read by His Lordship Brobe, Justice Brobe did not make specific declarations. He did not make. There were no specific points.
Did he make specific orders?
Exactly.
To the executive
to
or
the executive,
to anybody. But I'm asking you a different question. Was the premise of the argument that the sale has taken place and that the legality of the sale was being questioned?
Let me tell you something. You see, once again, this is a technical area where 6 judges of the highest court of this land have ruled on. I will tread with caution. But my patriotism will not be curtailed by the legal framework of this country. Let me state one thing. The Accra Redevelopment Scheme has the basis for which land or property must be sold. It clearly states that the building must be run down, must be a rundown building, which is no longer habitable. In 2001, Jake got that bungalow refurbished to his own taste. And
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you, George. You haven't answered my question. What's the premise that the sale has taken place?
I'm building and I'm coming to there. It was illegal because it says that the redevelopment scheme clearly states that any state bungalow that will be sold must be advertised. I challenge Jake. And see, Jake has made that statement repeatedly. Jake said that he was offered the bungalow and he bought it. Listen, you've had Gabi Ochedaku. Nana Kumia is a spokesperson for Nana Akufo-Addo. Gabi Ochedaku has repeatedly praised and touted Nana Akufo-Addo's high morals simply because Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo was also similarly offered a state bungalow. And on the basis of principles, and this is one place I would off my heart for Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, for this one singular decision.
And I'm very sorry I have to interrupt you again, but like you mentioned, you are a law student. I'm sure you know about a contract. So if he was offered and he has bought, and you are saying, if I may, you are saying it was illegal, and now the court says it was not illegal. In my layman's mind, doesn't that sound like a sale has taken place and the court says that sale wasn't illegal?
Well,
how does government, through cabinet, come back to say that it is no longer interested in selling? Please explain that.
I will just even drop a point here. You see, I'm being very careful because I would not want to make statements which might put a judicial review in danger. But one thing I'll say, which has already been put out by certain royals from the Osu stool who have held a press conference, is the fact that particular land in question and other lands, that contract, if you want to look at it in its legal framework, was illegal as formed. I'll give you the explanation for it. The colonial government, on the 29th of June, 1929, acquired many of the lands around Ridge and Cantonment for an annual fee of £12 per annum for a lease period of 50 years. 50 years from the 29th of June, 1929, terminated on the 28th of June, 1979. Now bear in mind, 1979 June 28th, which Ghana royal would have had the effrontery to go to the castle to go and ask for a renegotiation of his lease? Those leases, not just the Jake one, and so many of the state bungalows, those leases have expired. And so if the leases have expired and the state has not renewed this lease, it then means the state did not even own the land in the first place to offer. So it was illegal as formed.
Let me
on the case study or case law of Mohammed and Alaga, it was illegal as formed.
Let me just get Egbert to react because you mentioned him.
I like
and then after his reaction, I will go for a quick break.
Which my friend, who I'm just getting to know from his own, is a law student, comes with this. But I'm sure he's in a learning curve, so small. I give him, say, by the end of his law course and maybe active practice, and we will not hear some of these, comments that he's making. You mark my words, watch today's program, transit it to when my friend, is called to the bar. You will
his
see.
Comments are not serious.
Oh, no. No, not that. I'm not going to do any ad hominem kind of thing.
But I heard, you see, Holus. Now I'm hearing ad hominem.
You also heard hocus pocus. But I said I'm not going to do any.
Okay, so you react directly for me.
I just want to react directly. He comes in and badges and starts talking about my wife owns land or that I bought land through my wife. I'm not a coward. If I want to buy government land, I will go ahead, use my name, Egbert Fable, to buy land. So if my wife has bought land, it is her matter. It is her right.
So it is true.
And the constitution. But I've said this on air. If you Google this particular subject,
we're talking about
Google
discussion.
Google it. Even on my Joe Online. I have spoken extensively and copiously on this matter. Anybody who knows my public record as a discussant on these programs and has followed me very well will not, be taken aback by what you said, because it is out there, ex cathedra, on the public record. So I am not taken aback at all by it. Legitimate Ghanaian, legitimate taxpayer, legitimate like Vice President Mills, legitimate like 31st December Women's Movement, legitimate like Brigadier General Nunu Mensah, legitimate like Professor Kofi Awono, Bettina Kuya, Ado, NDK Financial Services, 2009, NDK Okonikwe Jani. As chairman of the Regional Lands Commission, Greater Accra, NDK Financial Services has been assigned land at cantonments as we speak.
At what cost? You see, that's another issue we should ask.
Now you shift it to cost. Now you shift it to cost.
Not just that. Because your wife buys a 0.33 acre land at cantonment for 8,250 Ghana cedis.
Can I make my point?
Less than 10,000 Ghana cedis.
Can I make my point?
What's the valuation of that land?
Now you shift to cost. Cost. Go and check with the Lands Commission. the input that went into the various costs before you come out and make all these kinds of pronouncements. Otherwise, I think that you attempt to come and attack my person. I'm a Ghanaian. I come from the central region. In the central region, there are lands commission lands which have been bought by Ghans, okay? Which have been bought by Evers, which have been bought by people from other ethnic groups in the Republic. I am a Ghanaian. My taxpayers' money is part of what was used to build the Bank of Ghana, what was used to build the University of Ghana, and all the rest. And so if some people want to compartmentalize Ghana and say that Accra for Ghans or whatever, they're entitled to it. But I think that what puts us together as a people is more than what separates us. And so don't let it be thrown about that people like me. People like who? Me. I'm a Ghanaian, a son of the soil. I have not done anything wrong, and I believe any relation of mine has not done anything wrong in buying government property.
You just said you didn't agree with the principle.
I have said I didn't agree with the principle.
Of even buying petrol for them.
No, it is Kojo who asked me a question that what do we do to solve it? I offered a prognosis, which is that what is gone is gone. Third-party rights have been created. It will be difficult to reverse it. But going forward, let's pass a law and stop it. And that if even you ask me, I will even say that why should government ministers be giving bungalows and the rest when civil servants have no places to lay their heads? Simple as that. This is not rocket science. You don't need any. But in any event, what should we focus on at this critical time? And that is why I told you that the Supreme Court judgment, even though I didn't read it, I am not of the position that the president or anybody has breached any kind of thing, because my inkling was that there were no orders to anybody. These were declaratory reliefs. And if this government respects the rule of law, all that the government would say is that the courts have spoken. We think that whatever, it was a good fight. Either the applicants themselves or the plaintiffs, those two deputy ministers can go for a review, or that let's leave it and let the people of Ghana decide at the next election. You don't go into a caucus in a protected fortress like the Osu Castle when Jake, who is the subject matter, who has a right to the property, has not been given a hearing. And then you go and make all these kinds of things.
The owners of the land were not given a hearing when the policy was crafted.
So that is why everybody can go to court. That is why everybody can go to court. So don't let us come and throw shenanigans and red herrings about and obfuscate the issues when the nerve center of what we are looking at is whether or not Jake inappropriately obtained the property.
Okay.
Nobody has been able to answer that question. Meanwhile, the government itself says government has decided that it is no longer going to sell. So when did the government decide that at some point in time it was selling the property?
Okay, it is 11 o'clock right now.
We're talking legal rights.
I'm going to come around the table.
And a certain root of title.
I am going to come around the table and give my guests 3.5 minutes each. I want you to speak to, and you can choose whichever way you want to use this time. I want you to speak to the other two court cases that we mentioned as we started off this conversation, and give me some commentary on it. Those who want to maybe use your time to still comment on this, I won't interject. But I'm giving you 3.5 minutes each. Kennedy Japon's case is back in court. The state prosecutors have filed, I'm told it's called a motion of certiorari before the Supreme Court, asking for his bail to be revoked. They're also asking for a bit more time to put their case together before they start prosecution proper. And then there are delays in the Woyome prosecution. Mr. Martin Abike, the former Attorney General, says that the government's legal team, which is different from the Attorney General's department and the state prosecutors there, are being unethical. They are meddling in some of the cases. And sometimes you can point to conflict of interest, which he thinks are the reasons for which some of the cases like the Woyome matter are delayed. Egbe, let me start with you. I'll come to Nanakomi and then I'll go to him. Let me start with you, Egbert.
So
I'm giving him 3.5 minutes.
Let me say that I also have my own worries, particularly, and I'll speak to the Woyome case. Kojo, when Woyome and his co-accused were arraigned before the High Court, I mean, everybody knows that in this republic, once you are arraigned before a court of competent jurisdiction on a criminal charge, your charges are read to you. And then the court will, if the offense is a bailable offense, admit you to bail. Or on the other hand, if it's not a bailable offense, you'll be kept in. So Woyome goes to court. We all saw what happened. Charges are read. He pleads not guilty. All the co-accused plead not guilty. Then, fast forward, sometime later, we get the Attorney General's Department. And I must place it on record. The Attorney General's Department of this republic has some of the finest legal brains, men and women. I mean, some we've sat in class with some of them. Some are far one seniors. the kind of human resource we have at Attorney General's Department, it's unfathomable. But our bane has been that we have not allowed the non-political appointees of the Attorney General's Department to do their work according to law, and even in some instances, I dare to say according to conscience. You take somebody to court, the person is arraigned, facts are read, charges, everything done. Then weeks, months on, when the case is supposed to start, the Attorney General's Department comes back to the same court and says that we have no docket, so we are not ready to start. Although, the question is, if you have no docket, then upon what facts did you bring the accused persons before court on arraignment, pursuant to which they were even admitted to bail? So, for me, and for people who can see clearly what is happening, and I know that it is now that the Attorney General's Department is putting together all kinds of material to be able to start prosecution. So that, do you place the cat before the horse or the horse before the cat? You, Dr. Conrad Murray, this doctor who's been convicted for jailing, for causing Michael Jackson's death. When Michael Jackson died, indictments were issued against him. But in truth, when was he brought before court? It took at least a year for the prosecution to gather all the evidence, do all the toxicology tests and everything before. Why is it that in this republic, just because something has happened and by supposition or understanding or assumption it is something illegal, straight away we rush and go to court? The police are entitled to admit a person to bail on very harsh terms. Very harsh terms. Women could have been given 51.2 million Ghana cedi bail by the police with justification. He would have had to produce people saying that if he runs away in the course of anything, they would have been brought in. Next thing is that you rush into court and you say you are not ready to start. What it is that Ghana is part of a Commonwealth of Nations. We took our law from England, and only last week I made reference to this same thing on this program, that we are part of a Commonwealth of Nations. We received our law from England. What we do here is just the same thing that the Americans and the Brits do. So if we rush people to court and get the court to admit them to bail, and we say that we haven't prepared a docket, in that area, we are making ourselves a laughing stock. Number two, you have also raised, unless you want to go around and count.
You are running out of time, actually. You have run out of time.
Okay, that's why I saw the signals. No, because I was also going to come to the Kennedy Japan
very quickly, and then I'll move on.
It is before the Supreme Court. There's an application for certiorari. I don't think that we are allowed really to go into it, because at the sum or at the base of the whole thing is that by Article 96(7) of the Criminal and Other Criminal Procedure Whatever Act 30, a judge's discretion is taken away from giving bail in cases of murder, treason. I mean those rape, defilement, and arrest.
Non-bailable offenses.
Interestingly, the Terrorism Act has also come up and makes mention of the fact that it has amended Section 96(7) of the Criminal Act 30, saying that even though it's not written there, and so the prosecution's case is that because Kennedy Japan has been charged with terrorism, the judge did not have a discretion to grant him bail. But you see, I also know as a lawyer that yes, it is there in black and white, but if the facts of the case as presented by the prosecution do not fit the charges, a judge can
has
look at
discretion
it and grant bail. But that's for the Supreme Court to determine.
Kojo,
Chief.
You see, one of the major problems this government has, and a lot of its communicators, is the hypocrisy. Because of that, they are not able to galvanize the whole nation behind them. I mean, yes, my brother George, he talks about Atuguba, and that
Justice
Atuguba's opinion is interest of the state. That means those other 6 justices who have their own opinion, their opinion is not in the interest of the state. But
that's a view to which he's entitled.
That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, but you say his has interest of the state. You've made a value judgment. You can say you disagree. But if
he's allowed to, at least even make that value judgment.
That one person's view, that one is in the interest of the state. That means the other people, their opinions are not in the interest of the state. It's hypocrisy. Now, the judge, the lawyer who spoke earlier, said that Mills's property is at
Lawyer Senanu
is at what did he say? Oyarifa, George too says Atofanko.
Is that Atofanko?
But you see, and then when you talk about Jakes and somebody, he says price. He says price. You see the hypocrisy?
Well, I didn't say price.
No. When you are talking about Egbert,
when I mentioned NDK,
you said price. You see, the hypocrisy is so clear that it defeats your case. It's state property. Of course, state property at Osu will not cost the same as state property at Ofanko. This is basic understanding. So why are you saying that? Why is somebody buying property at Osu and we are comparing it to Ofanko? Because the prices are different. But you see, the core of the matter is that the university is given land for the use of the university. The university at some point decided to divest that land for private purposes. Professor Mills at that time, he had a bungalow, he had a duty post, and yet he went and bought that property, the university property at Ofanko. Now that he has bought it, that property is no more available for the use of the state or for public purposes. There are students who are renting private properties. There are lecturers who are renting private properties. If the university was going to maintain that property for the use of the public, it would have built bungalows for the use of sitting lecturers. Professor Mills is not a sitting lecturer, but now that property is his private property. He's probably rented it. These are simple issues that you can understand. And this business about the policy only talking about rundown buildings. I've told you that there's a judge sitting in her house, living there, and she's been told to quit because that property has been sold to somebody. The Accra Regional Director of Lands, who's being given properties. What is more conflict of interest than that? The Regional Director of Lands being given property.
Regional Chairman of the
Lands Commission in Accra.
That is right. Clearly it is wrong.
But why have you not condemned? That's what I'm saying. That
was the premise on which I started my argument.
Cut the hypocrisy. Let's look at this thing holistically so that you don't divide the nation.
And you can touch on Woyome and Kennedy Japan for me as well.
Now, Woyome. You know, Amidu had talked about concealment of the Woyome matter by cabinet ministers. He talked about the NDC legal team interfering with the Attorney General's department. You have a Deputy Attorney General who has openly said that the state has no case against Woyome. You have adjournment after adjournment. To cap it all, Kojo, you have a situation where the President of the Republic, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and the Security Forces, he issues a directive in April 2010 that stopped the payment. Not once, twice, in April and in August. Sorry, in April and in June 2010. The courts of Ghana also reinforced that stop order in September and say, yes, we've placed an injunction on the payments. Yet still, this NDC government was able, in January 2011, April 2011, and in August 2011, to make all those payments to Woyome. When the matter leaked, the government is now telling us, the people of Ghana, that, oh, we have been defrauded by Woyome. The man is a fraud, so we are now going to take him to court to recover the money. Look, Ghanaians should be crying. This is KSN. I don't know if he's listening. He can do 2 shows on this. I mean, it's comedy. The only problem is that it's so tragic because it's people's monies that have been taken in this manner. Let me just conclude on Kennedy. Kennedy made statements. The language he used has been condemned. Even the NPP had said that the language he used was not temperate. The government feels that they are so grievous that he must be charged before the courts. No problem. But you look at the government's behavior. You are looking for equity, yet your hands are not clean. They deny him bail. They keep him beyond 48 hours. A whole government of Ghana. How do you get a nation behind you when the government of Ghana behaves in this manner?
George,
breaking the law to try and enforce the law.
George, come in.
It's a disgrace.
Nana Akomia sits here and tells you the story of a sitting judge who was sticking out. Well, a former justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Agoy, he was sitting in his own house in 2008. He had retired from the Supreme Court. He had suffered a stroke, unfortunately, and had partial paralysis. He was lying in bed when the NPP sold his bungalow.
Yeah, so
and
it is
they
not
went
only ran
and
down.
they went.
Now the point is that it's not only ran down buildings.
Clearly, the problem with the NPP's interpretation. Clearly, the problem with the NPP's interpretation of the redevelopment scheme. The redevelopment scheme speaks about rundown buildings, but it's a chief justice, a former justice.
So why the judge? Last year the judge was allocated. This is not rundown. NDC type.
Justice Agoy was lying in bed. Justice Agoy was lying in bed. He was lying in bed, and then they went and took off the roof of the house, the new person, and the man died in 2008. Okay, if you go just behind, if you go just behind the deputy minister's bungalows, the foreign affairs used to have a guest house there. After Akufo-Addo left office as foreign minister, that bungalow has changed ownership. He's Akufo-Addo's communicator. I should tell us who owns that bungalow. That bungalow where they hold their meetings.
Do you know?
Clearly, it is for Mr. Akufo-Addo. Okay?
Where
that bungalow has bought a bungalow.
I'm saying that bungalow behind the where the deputy ministers are. You stayed at the deputy ministerial enclave. The last building there, where used to be the foreign affairs guest house. Today it's no longer the foreign affairs guest house.
Who bought it?
I'm asking you. You should tell us.
Because
you hold Akufo-Addo meetings there.
No. You said that it has been bought.
Akufo-Addo holds meetings there today. He holds meetings there today. So you should tell us who owns that building. When I finish, you get the time to do it. Now coming to
he's on the floor now.
Akufo-Addo
let him. He doesn't have much time. He doesn't have much time. He doesn't have much time.
Let him.
He has rented the foreign affairs guest house.
What do you mean foreign affairs guest house?
That building was the foreign affairs guest house.
Where
I'm telling you.
Office.
Sure,
Are you serious?
You know where the deputy ministerial.
Let him make his point. He has just about 3 more minutes.
What are we talking about? Look,
okay, you go.
And the NDC government hasn't taken it.
Going to the Kennedy
and your
Japan
government
issue.
hasn't taken it.
Going to the Kennedy Japan issue. Nana sits here and tells you that Kennedy made intemperate statements, and for him, if the NDC feels we should go. He made intemperate statements. You claim so in a statement. Yet to give him a hero's welcome. A colleague sitting member of parliament, Honorable Ben, goes to sit on Asempa, sister station.
Honorable Ben who?
Ben I also sits on Asempa.
You are not too sure.
Sits on Asempa. Okay, sits on Asempa, a sister station of Joy FM, and likens Kennedy Japan to Jesus Christ, and likens Kennedy Japan to Nelson Mandela, and then you tell me that the NPP has taken a position. What position? What hypocrisy are we talking about here? For me, I believe the court process. He was never kept before 48 hours. Listen, he is a lawyer. He's a practicing lawyer.
Don't get distracted.
When somebody is kept for 48 hours, and you are moved out of police custody and sent to court, and you can't be granted bail and you come back, you don't continue counting. Once you are moved out, even if you are moved out of custody,
who said that? Who said that?
You can't choose. Now you're asking me authority. You can't choose.
But you are a law student. You know that you cannot make a statement like this, sweeping like this, without backing it with law.
No.
Tell me which part of the constitution.
We should not engage in triviality.
I'll give you the constitution.
I'll give you just 1 minute to wrap up.
The emphasis
just
is
1 minute to wrap up.
Just on sweeping himself.
1 minute.
But he was not kept there beyond 48 hours.
Wrap up for me. I don't say that if you are moved
wrap up for me.
Coming to Martin Amidu's
that's dangerous.
Coming to Martin Amidu's issue and his so-called citizen vigilante statement, Martin should tell us the very legal brains who he claims are manipulating the AG's department, who manipulated him when he was in the AG's department. I think it's a case of sour grapes. Okay. The state is prosecuting Woyomi. They will continue with their prosecution as in the way, as per Egbert's own assertions. We have some of the finest legal brains in the AG's department, and they would continue with the prosecution of any Woyomi and any other person who has been found guilty of taking away the state.
Let me quickly give you 2 minutes to respond to that claim that the building behind the former foreign affairs.
Well, let me state categorically that Nanado has an office at the Ridge area, the end of the road from the minister's enclave. It is a rented property. It is never the property of the Foreign Affairs Ministry. So, my brother, please don't. Now, this Justice Ago, was it Justice Ago that you mentioned?
Ajoy.
You said what
memory,
yeah.
But he was retired, wasn't he?
And I was actually giving you that quick minute to respond to that particular issue.
But when you retire, you're not asked to move out immediately. You're given 3 months.
But you have a sitting judge who you are removing because you've sold
So on that matter, you are saying that that's not property Nanado has bought.
No. where he has his office, when he was doing the primaries, he had an office at Ridge, which he still uses. It's a rented property.
Is that what you're referring to, George?
Kojo, that's the property I'm referring to, and I'm saying it is the property. It used to be the property of foreign affairs. It used to be the property of foreign affairs. Today, the ownership has changed. And then on the issue of Kennedy Japan being held not being held for more than 48 hours, if you are moved out, it's not case law. It's not in the constitution. It is procedure.
It is procedure. Who's procedure?
It is procedure. You studied procedure at Mapara, didn't you? Procedure is a law. Is a lawyer. You shouldn't say what procedure.
You don't come and tell the law on this.
Procedure. You studied procedure.
You all want more time. You all want more time to do with other topics.
You are talking
Shall we go ahead?
Let's
go ahead and talk about
the police will deceive.
The property that has connection with the Foreign Affairs Ministry is the property which is opposite where Nanado currently has his office.
And
my brother is just confusing. Which one?
The one that has a relationship with the Foreign Affairs Ministry.
I don't know who owns it, but it used to be the guest house of the Foreign Affairs, opposite Nanado's office. So please get your first correct.
Okay, 26 minutes after 11. Let me introduce my next subjects. We've got two other things to deal with. We want to adequately, make the time available so that our guests can comment on it. The minority has been criticizing President Mills over the CP debt payments. And they are saying that the president, or perhaps even the state, should take a closer look at the finance minister, should take a closer look at the former Attorney General Betty Modidrisu and their roles that they played in this payment. Osei Mensa is the minority leader. He had opportunity to speak to the subject earlier this week. Nana, let me come to you for some commentary on it. I'm coming to you for some commentary on it, and then I'll go to George subsequently. Let me hear
Nana, you need a letter.
Which letter?
The CP payments. That's what you are going to speak to.
Well, then maybe you can start.
Hey, why are you coming from the same communication team?
Oh, no. I mean, this is public information.
You're sharing documentation.
This is public information.
I'm watching my time.
You start.
Okay, Goyo.
Yeah.
I just Nana has ceded his this thing to me to start.
So it means he won't speak on the
No, he will speak.
No, because I'm looking for my letter.
I'm just watching my time.
But Kojo, there is this letter dated 22nd March 2012, addressed to the chairman, Public Accounts Committee, Parliament House, Accra, and signed by J.H. John Henry Martin Newman, Chief of Staff at the Presidency. It reads, Dear Sir, ARI, non-disclosure of Government of Ghana liability, 80 million euro request for information. Your letter number OP/PAC/12/49, dated 5th March, on the above-mentioned subject refers. I regret to inform you that we have not found any information in respect of Cabinet approval of the settlement agreement referred to in your said letter. By a copy of this letter, the Honorable Minister for Justice and Attorney General is requested to liaise with you on this to discuss possible issues arising therefrom. You can count on our cooperation. Yours faithfully, John Henry Martin Newman, Chief of Staff. This letter was copied to the Honorable Minister, Ministry of Justice and Attorney General, Accra. Kojo, I just hope, and I'm going to be very candid and charitable here. This letter from the Minister or from the Chief of Staff virtually says that, well, we don't have any records there. I want to err on the side of caution and say that maybe the Attorney General's office has some information that can settle this matter. But if it turns out that this cabinet approval is non-existent, it will be a matter of great shock and tribulation to me. And I believe every honest and patriotic Ghanaian that in the year of our Lord 2009 thereof, the government of Ghana went into a settlement with CP and paid 80 million euros. 94, sorry. I'm just quoting from the letter, that's why, pardon me. And cabinet did not know anything about it. What is cabinet? Cabinet is provided for in our constitution. You see, and I think that we need to situate cabinet in its rightful position in our arrangements. And I'll quickly go to what the provisions are with respect to the cabinet. Cabinet is it's an arm. It says Article 76 says there shall be a cabinet which shall consist of the president, the vice president, and not less than 10 and no more than 19 ministers of state. Article 76(2) thereof says the cabinet shall assist the president in the determination of general policy of the government. We run an executive presidency. Look at even the way the constitution has framed it. It says the cabinet shall assist. It means final power, final authority is with the president, except that in executing his presidential mandate, he shall have the assistance of cabinet. It means the president did not know anything about it. It means that the cabinet that is also supposed to assist the president does not know anything about it. What kind of nation is this? What kind of governance is this? That this amount of money can go out of the exchequer or Bank of Ghana or Ghana's foreign reserves, and cabinet does not know. So who is the Attorney General who constituted himself or herself into the President of Ghana, the Cabinet of Ghana, and authorized this 80 million payment? These are simple, fundamental questions. I don't want to speak too much. Somebody must be held liable and accountable for it. Even if it was pursuant to a settlement, the Attorney General is not in charge of the national coffers. So who, by a stroke of pen, authorized the Minister of Finance and the Controller and Accountant General's Department to dip his or her hands and authorize into our coffers and authorize such transfer or such payment of money? These are simple questions, ABC. They're necessary questions, which we should have answers to.
Now your 6 minutes are almost up. You want to touch on it before it wraps up?
Okay.
And go to George?
The CP payment is just another blatant example of the government of Ghana giving away public money for free. CP, Construction Pioneers, I don't know what the name stands for this because it's changed ownership so many times. They did some work for the government of Ghana. There was dispute over the charges. It was realized that the rates that they had used in charging for the work they did, particularly the Takrady Yamransan Road, that the payments were overdone. They themselves, they agreed. So there was dispute over how much money was due them. In 2007, CP said they would accept 94 million euro in lieu of every other charges. Government of Ghana disputed. The matters were in court and before arbitration panels to see how much money can be saved the government of Ghana. So after the change of government, this government accepted what CP had asked for and obviously has paid the 94 million euro. The question Egbert raised, that how can this money have been paid, because 94 million obviously was not in the budget of the Ministry of Roads. How can these monies have been paid without the express knowledge and permission of the president? It's very strange. And the letter from the cabinet shows that cabinet was also not apprised of it. Secondly, CP, in the various works that they had done for the government of Ghana, owed taxes. Those taxes amounted to 145 million euros. So even if we had, anybody had offset the taxes against the agreement to pay them 95, government would have gotten some credit. It was not done. The taxes have not been waived because it's only Parliament that can waive taxes. There's no record of Parliament being asked to waive taxes and doing so. So cabinet didn't approve, taxes were not waived, and these monies have been paid by government officials.
And so the minority is asking questions. Anything to be done beyond asking questions?
A full investigation have to be conducted.
By who?
By the proper state authorities.
Which is?
With the police, the CID police, is a serious crime.
Yoko.
Or even Yoko, whichever, has to be conducted.
George, let me bring you in, and I'll give you more time because you're just one, and there are two of my friends here. So
on this issue, I really even won't speak much. But he's opposition. He's opposition and
George, go ahead.
But is it a shame to be in opposition?
Go ahead, George.
Well, you see, for me, the point I'll just make is I don't even see why we are fretting over this. And
oh yeah,
and legitimate questions.
And for me, I stated clearly that Osenshi Mensambos did not have even the moral right to ask these questions.
Is it a legitimate question?
If this is true, and well, no, listen, documentation could be, like you rightly said, in so many offices. There's a secretary to cabinet.
Oh, so cabinet hasn't got its own approval in its records.
No. There is a secretary to cabinet. That office is completely different from the office of the chief of staff, even though it works under his office.
Why wasn't that?
You have the Ministry of Finance, which would most likely have done the payment.
Controller.
You would have Controller and Accountant General. You get Bank of Ghana. you will get even the Attorney General's Department, the Ministry of Justice. We haven't exhausted all of these institutions. And so I don't want us to cry wolf when there's no wolf. Questions have been asked. If I can speak on authority of the president's character, the president will make sure that this matter is investigated.
What character?
Oh
no! You see, you don't know.
Ask Kwame Penim.
No.
Ask Kwame Penim. He is a man who cannot, who is incorruptible.
When
quick question.
Okay.
Quick question.
Please.
Is this a legitimate question being asked by the minority?
If 94 million euros has been paid from the taxpayers' purse without due authorization, there's a reason. There's a legitimate reason, of course, for every Ghanaian to ask questions. But then why I said Osei Mensah Bones does not have the legitimacy is he sat in parliament and the Kufuor administration went and contracted the IFCs and CNTCI loans. He did not ask questions about those things. He sat in parliament. He sat in parliament as part of. Please.
Let him make his argument.
He sat in parliament as part of the then majority and got parliament to approve an agreement with the Brazilian company, only for the real Brazilian company to come out and tell us they have no dealings with government. He sat in parliament and we were told after the government went in for the Euro bond, 750 million with a short repayment time and high interest rate. And according to Charles Rekubrobe, part of that money was supposed to be used for getting energy generation equipment. And in the words of Honorable Tazan, toys were bought.
But the money didn't come.
Toys were bought. Oh,
George.
He sat in parliament, and if not for Radio Gold's own investigative work, they were going to pass IFC when it was a hairdressing salon.
So it wasn't passed.
Take it easy. They're asking you a question here. Take it easy.
If indeed, and I'm borrowing your own expression,
very well,
this amount was paid without authorization from the right quarters, doesn't matter really who's asking the questions.
You must take the log out of your eye before you take out the speck in someone else's eye.
So you won't do investigation.
And so for me, the point I have made is this is an issue. This is an issue. Oh, Osei Mensah, obviously. There's a big
log in his eye.
And on behalf of the minority.
George, let me help you here. Don't get distracted.
I'm not at all.
Make your point.
I'm handling the distractions very well.
Make your point.
See, the point I'm making here is, for me, in your opinion, not the opinion of Ghanaians.
Make your point.
You see, the point I'm making here is very simple. If there's a legitimacy to this claim, the president will make sure it is investigated.
When?
Today, you have people say Yoko should investigate. Now I mention Yoko.
No, I said the police.
I mentioned.
Oh no, but he said fraud office, and then you said Yoko.
Yes.
Okay, you want the fraud office. Well, let me remind you.
Fraud office of the CID.
Oh. We have the serious fraud office is no longer called fraud office. It's called Yoko. By an act of the parliament, you get it.
Please,
Yoko will investigate. So Yoko would investigate, and as usual, Yoko will give us a non-partisan, comprehensive report with which the Aegis department can now
Allah will make report.
Okay, so let me see if I get you. There's an Yoko investigation.
I haven't said
in the offing.
It is a possible avenue.
You are a member of the government communication team. Do you know how government intends to deal with this?
I am not in a position to speak.
But do you want government to investigate?
Personally, I have spoken repeatedly. Nana, you're not the host.
Okay,
but I have spoken.
Nana,
listen,
no,
today
please.
There's a lot of patriotism in regards many of the issues we are discussing. From
sure?
selling state bungalows to Jake, and now we're talking 94 million euros. Okay, I think you should threaten to walk him out. You see, that will make him comport himself. He's behaving like a spoiled child who was another.
You're getting distracted, my brother.
The point I'm making here is this: if 94 million euros of our taxpayers' money has been paid without due authorization, as a Ghanaian citizen who pays my tax, I would want the government to investigate this. And I'm saying that knowing the character of the president, as even evidenced and testified for by a stalwart of the opposition, Kwame Penim, the president would also be of the opinion that investigations into this matter to either clear the payment as legitimate and genuine or as illegitimate and hence
the character of the president is that he superintends a government where people under him make payments without recourse to him.
Let him make his point.
That's character.
That is going to be your own prejudiced opinion.
So Judge, knowing the character of the president, he
would get to the bottom of this issue. It's not going to be an issue that will be glossed over like
we still haven't got into the bottom of the way we make matter. It's not of the president.
Said he would not prosecute people because he didn't want to embarrass anybody.
When did Before say that?
Oh, he said that.
We have 20 minutes to 12. We have 20 minutes to 12.
20 minutes to 12.
20 minutes to 12 on Newsfile. Gentlemen. Gentlemen, let's
Sorry, Kojo, sorry.
let's stay in line. 20 minutes to 12 on Newsfile. I'm just going to quickly read a few of the comments and then we'll go to our final conversation. We'll try and split the time, between the various parties here. Watch your dreams come true in the MTN Dream Big promotion. Win 10,000 Ghana cedis cash every day for the next 100 days. You can win 2 brand new Hyundai iX35 cars from Hyundai Motors. And at the end of the 3rd month, you could win the lovely 3-bedroom estate house from UT Properties. The final grand prize at the end of the 3rd month is that building. All you've got to do is to text WIN, W-I-N, to short code 2020 now. MTN, everywhere you go. And still talking of MTN, the world is waiting to hear your music. MTN Hitmakers is your fast track to international recognition. Here's what you need to do. If you want to win that 100,000 cedi cash prize, including the opportunity to record your own album, just download your Hitmakers entry form from mtn.com.gh, fill out and drop it together with your music demo CD during the Musica National Tour, or send it to the nearest MTN service center or to the courier by posting to box 8179 at Chimota here in Accra before the 8th of June. MTN Hitmakers is brought to you in partnership with Musica and connected by Nokia. Life is always richer with MTN. It's everywhere you go. Send us your thoughts by text 1422 across networks or put them on our Facebook wall, facebook.com/joy997. I'll be glad to share it with the rest of the world. I'm instructed to read to you this text message from lawyer Kwame Boafo Akufu, who I understand has been authorized by the Nana Akufo-Addo office to react to that quick comment on that bungalow. He says the Foreign Affairs Guest House was originally occupied by the late General Bisileur as private property on lease from George Watson and Co. The PNDC took over the property and under PNDC Law 325 sought to confiscate it belonging to the General. Subsequently, there was an instruction by George Watson and Co. to recover the property. A petition was placed before the deconfiscation committee headed by Betty Moldidrisu, then Chief State Attorney. She ordered the release of the property to Watson and Co. And this has nothing to do with Mr. Akufo-Addo. We are 18 minutes away from 12 on Newsfile. This week, a couple of opinion polls have come up. There's one by Sinovate that says, as at April this year when they conducted their last poll, Nana Danko Akufo-Addo was ahead of Preston Mills marginally in their poll as conducted. There are also thoughts coming up. There was a second comment made by a UK economist organization that suggests that Preston Mills could be in the run to winning the 22 of December polls. George, let me come to you to give me some commentary on this. Also this week, on the road to election 2012, Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia has been accused of allegedly making some ethnic and religious comments when he traveled to the middle belt of this country. Let me start with you, George.
So we should box the two issues
on the road to election 2012.
Which of the Sinovates are we talking about? The very same Sinovates which sent their report to Gabi for his opinions before they released them. The Sinovates that did a pie chart which was in excess of 360 degrees or didn't add up to 360 degrees. I think we should treat them with contempt. And this is where I'm going to take you on, Kojo, yourself on the Super Morning Show of Joy FM. You've been running a poll on your blog, the Super Morning Show blog, since the 10th of August 2010. The Sinovate poll, if I'm told, polled 7,000 people thereabout. At my last check, the Joy FM Super Morning Show blog, your poll, has polled 14,600 people. That's double or almost double the number of people Sinovate has polled. Well, I'll give you the results of your blog and your blog's poll. Your blog's poll gives President Mills 49% or 48% thereabout. Gives Akufo-Addo 43% thereabout, and the rest are undecided. I think that is a more genuine reflection of the situation on the ground than a Sinovate which will bounce their research by Gabi Ochedaku before putting it out. And I take issue with Joy FM for not publicizing and giving the necessary publicity to that poll. It's still running anyway.
Where do you find the Joy FM poll?
It's on your website, My Joy Online, your Super Morning Show blog.
That's a publication, right?
It is a blog that is running. You haven't. You should give it a headline. The same way you've given Sinovate's story a headline.
I hear you.
Give it a headline. Yes.
I hear you, and I thank you for the feedback.
Very well.
Proceed with your comments.
Because many Ghanaians do not even know you're running a blog, so I'm giving you free publicity on your airways.
I hear you. Thank you. Proceed.
Good. And so for me, I believe that Ghanaians are not going to be swayed by this. Okay, there are more credible institutions that carry out. When Gallup carried out its poll, that's a more credible institution. Okay, you can have everybody can run a poll, but not everybody is credible. And so Sinovet will be treated with the contempt they deserve for their lack of professionalism. Now, coming to the
I've heard other persons in times past, even with Sinovet polls, who say, don't just dismiss it. Look at it, you may learn a thing or two.
Let me ask you a question. Sinovet polls place emphasis on four thematic areas. These are 4 thematic areas where the government is excelling.
In your opinion?
Clearly, the Green Book is testament to it. Okay, and then you see, this is the same Sinovet which did a poll recently and put Akufo-Addo a whooping 10% behind President Mills. They should tell us what has been the basis for the shift in less than 6 months. Okay, they failed to show you
the performance of the government.
Okay, they failed to show you that. They failed to show you what has made the president drop in his ratings. Okay, for me, I think it's an exercise in futility. It won't wash. I'm sure once again, maybe this time they bounced it by Gabi or another person. Maybe by Nana Kumia this time they bounced it by Nana Kumia and he approved it before it came out. Now the point, or Egbert, was it you? The point must be made about Baumia.
They bounced it off. Yeah.
You see, the point must be made about Baumia's thing. Okay, I was on a sister station with his spokesperson, and he sought to defray the issues and say it didn't happen. Look, the people who have heard you, I think the honorable thing Baumia should do, like he failed to do.
What exactly is he accused of having said?
He took issue with His Excellency the Vice President and said that His Excellency the Vice President was not a true Northerner because His Excellency the Vice President was not a Muslim, and that a vote for him was a vote for the Muslim North. It was a vote for, because he was meeting with the Muslim community at Old Tafo in Kumasi, and so he, and I think Old Tafo falls within Honorable Akutosei's constituency. He was a true Northerner because he was a Muslim. Well, people have raised issues that he doesn't even know how to say the prayers well, but he claims he's a true Muslim. Now he fails to realize that he's like once again, like he failed to do with the Ghana Statistical Service, realize that he's goofed and come and apologize. Here again, he's trying to window dress the situation. The man fails to realize that the very north he claims being a Muslim makes him, the north was predominantly Christian before the Arab invaders and trade. And that is why the Catholic Church. Yeah.
Source.
Is it?
Source.
Please. Let's get serious in this country.
Oh.
You see, the point I'm making
asking
here.
for your source
the
for
point I'm making here is that, look, that is why the Catholic Church today is hugely present in the north. They're very strong in the 3 northern regions. Go to Wa and look at the Catholic cathedral that's been put up there. You see, the man fails to realize that when we had a Muslim who was a Northerner as vice president of this country for 8 years, Hajj was never organized well. Hajj always was problematic. Under the man who is claimed not to be a true Northerner, he's claimed not to be a true Northerner because he is Christian, and so he's not a true son of the North. You have seen the beauty of how the Hajj has been organized. This year, those from the 3 northern regions don't even have to face the peril of driving to Accra. They're going to be airlifted from Tamale. That is what has been done. The same MPP in 2000, if you pick their 2000 manifesto, they said they were going to transform Nima. Akufo-Addo said he's a Nima boy. He said he was going to transform Nima and many of the Zongos and give them high-rise apartment buildings. And that was where Honorable Osafo said they were going to build vertical buildings. You know, vertical buildings. He said they will build that. He couldn't even desilt the gutter in front of his house for the 8 years. They couldn't repair any of the roads. They couldn't repair any of the roads in Nima. Today, they come back with an intercity development fund and say they are going to strengthen the Zongos. The people of the Zongos know them. They know them for who they really are, and know that they would it is simply what we are saying with Jake. All they are going to do is come up with this scheme and tell you they are redeveloping the Zongos and pick all our Zongo brothers, throw them out, build apartment flats like they've done all over the city and rent it out to expatriates and throw our brothers into the streets. The Zongo people will not be fooled by this. But Baumia must bear in mind that cutting his political metal is starting with too many major goofs. He should stop driving this country down the religious and ethnocentric path. That is the war the MPP wants to wage. They started it with Kennedy Japan. Kennedy Japan made very ethnocentric and genocidal statements, and you have the running mate on the MPP's ticket, Dr. Mamadou Baumia, making statements which are religiously charged. Look at what is happening in the north of Nigeria. Boko Haram It is a war between ideologies, religious ideologies, Islam and Christianity. And today, he meets people in Tafo, and he wants to breed militancy. If he wants Boko Haram in this country, we can assure him one thing: the Special Forces of Ghana will deal with him and any such militants.
Yeah. Thank
Under
you,
whose
Kojo.
command?
Kojo, listen, we are a political party. We are putting our stuff before the people of Ghana to convince them that they should vote for us and that we'll deliver better welfare than the NDC. If anybody does a poll, and the poll shows that the people of Ghana are being responsive to our message, it humbles us and it encourages us to do more. If another person does a poll and says that, well, our efforts are not being appreciated by the majority of people, it will also humble us and it will still encourage us to do more. We will not discredit any poll. We would see what lesson we can learn from any poll and proceed. The Sinovate poll has consistently put Nanado ahead of President Mills. We accept it. But it reinforces our determination and then motivates and encourages us to do more. But I'm not surprised at the Sinovate poll. Look at what is happening in the country, Kojo. Look at the cost of living. Cement, as we speak, is now 25 cedis. Prices of items have gone by triple digits. We are being told inflation is in single digits, but prices have gone by triple digits.
That
cement, for example, cement as we speak is gone up more than 150%, triple digits. But we are being told that we are in single digits. The average Ghanaian,
25 cedis?
There used to be 8 cedis, 50% 3 years
When
ago.
you were leaving power?
Yes,
that's not
and
true.
it's not well. You take the city, the lifeblood of the economy, what the barometer of the economy, the currency, is falling by nearly 90% in 3 years. You take corruption. We've been told about the character of President Mills. The country has no leader. Where you have a situation where the person who is the leader, 2 occasions stopped payments, and yet the payments were made. You take CP, where millions of taxpayers' money has been paid to somebody. The cabinet didn't even know about it.
Allegedly.
So, the letter is in front of you, you say allegedly. So, why would anybody be surprised at a Sinovate poll? So, we are encouraged by it. If tomorrow somebody does a poll and say we are not doing well, we will learn from it and move forward. At the end of the day, Ghanaians themselves, beyond the propaganda, will look into their pockets and take their decisions.
Clearly.
Now, talk of Bawumia. Bawumia has come out to deny. Joy FM hasn't got a record of what Bawumia is supposed to have said. Bawumia has denied. I believe Bawumia. This business about Nima being transformed and not being transformed. Is that why the NDC man said that President Mills can't go to the Jubilee House because it is so close to Nima? Is it because Nima has not been transformed? Safo Mafo never talked about any high-rise buildings. Go and check your facts. This business of Bawumia driving the country into some. J.J. Rollins, the founder of your party, that today all of you are wearing this Batakari proudly, the person who brought all of this about.
And now what you're doing is assault. He's
That's
physically
Egbert
touching
would-
me.
The witness in that case. I mean, if filling your Batakari is assault.
No, you pinched me in
What you
minutes.
make, you pay 51 million of people's money, and that one is fraud. He has defrauded, and me, I'm holding your nice Batakari. You say, I'm saying
You want one?
the person who brought you this nice
Not in these
Batakari,
colours.
J.J. Rollins. He says that the Mills' government is driving the country into darkness. Is driving the country into an abyss. You know what an abyss is? Bottomless pit. The kind that is in the Bible, where there'll be gnashing of teeth.
You read the
So-
Bible?
So please, Bawumia has denied it. If you have the tape, play it and let us see. If Joy FM hasn't got a recording of that tape, I don't know where you say you have it. And Bawumia has come to deny. I find it difficult. Bawumia, his demeanor and his whole posture to go and say something about to try and exclude anybody. So I don't take it at all. But as for the polls, we are very happy about it. It encourages us. If somebody else does polls and he says we are not doing well, we look at where it's saying that we are not doing well and strengthen our efforts. those are our reactions to the polls.
Mr. Fable, let me give you the final word.
I'll speak to the polls. I'll speak to the polls first. You see, when as a child, our people say that if you are told as a child that your mother is dead, and because you come home and see that your mother is lying in a bed, albeit not talking, in her usual position, you take it that your mother is not dead. It is your own palaver. That is the way I look at polls. Somebody has done work, put it out. You can put whatever spin you want on it. You can damn it to the highest depths of hell. The point is that somebody has done his work. Yes, you're entitled to criticize it, but you know that deep inside you, when you go into your closet, you look at the thing and start to see how you can plug, if you like, any suggested areas where you need to do. So I understand what my friend is doing. Come out boldly, speak, and let your people feel that, let's say, you are the man. You have the braggadocio to walk through a hail of bullets. This in relation to the poll results. Well, those who take it serious, they will take it serious. At the end of the day, we shall see who will smile. That having been said, I think that this Bawumia matter. First of all, nobody has been able to tell us exactly what Dr. Bawumia said. But my checks, Dr. Bawumia in touring the Zongos has been very consistent in saying that, listen, the NPP is the only party of the two major parties, if I can say so, in this republic that has consistently provided a north-south, mix with respect to his presidential ticket. And the story hasn't changed. And so people should look at that in casting their votes. He's talking to his people. You know Dr. Bawumia, you know his pedigree, you know him, Kojo. This is a gentleman par excellence, if my French is right. Is this a man who will sue for war? Is this a man who will sue and labor for war? When Bawumia speaks, people like Mr. George, see that this is a man whose words are of effect and very, very, very permeating.
Where's your source for that?
What's my source? Myself. And they get worried. They get worried and try to put all kinds of roadblocks, shenanigans and all, but they will fail monumentally and in a gargantuan manner. Some people who cannot even hold a candle to Dr. Bawumia, and I'm not talking about you, just because of politics, they just go ad hominem and say all kinds of things. Let us do politics of respect. Let us do politics of issues rather than descending into what Nana Komia will call an abyss of insults, chicanery, and I don't want to add buffoonery, but in so many instances, some of the things since Bawumia spoke, some of the things that have come out, that his speech was written for him by somebody. For Christ's sake, this was a country representative of the ADB in Zimbabwe, of all nations. Go there and check the record. He's worked elsewhere. He's taught, right? So let's not try, because for all you know, he will be your vice president next term. What will you do? Yes, you're entitled to criticize him, but criticize him on facts, on substance, and not on all these shenanigans. My friend, Mr. George, I just want to come to him. My friend, Mr. George, I now know where I know him from, Ali Muhammad's office. Yes.
You went there?
No. Well, he used to hang out there.
I did my national service in the
Yes, I'm told so.
That is not a big deal. It was national service.
Could all this mix about the North being whatever. The North is part of Ghana. It is a fact that we have a religious mix in this country, from traditional believers right through to atheists, to Christians, Muslims, Rastafarians, and all the rest of them. Every political party has a right to speak to a certain class of religious believers,
without stoking flames.
But what about me? When the NDC as a party towards election 2000 came out with a slogan that Adi will fear Oye, what were they espousing? Vote for your kinsman.
Age-long traditional.
Vote for your kinsman. When you get cheese from the voter room, come and say that our son, Mr. Robert.
So now
I'm from the central region.
So,
but I don't believe that, gentlemen. I don't believe.
You haven't heard any of the elderly people say that you will fear.
I believe that as a papa will fear.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. We're out of time. I know you all want to make comments, but we're out of time. I want to say thank you. I just want to say thank you, gentlemen.